Chapter 1. If you can't control their passions, then make thinking about them evoke contrition. This is Wendy Billings' plan. She diligently sifts through the Daily Mail's TV guide pullout, circling the Manchester Derby and Crystal Palace versus Liverpool, today's two BBC FA Cup games, with an air of rectitude beyond rationality. It's not Wendy harbouring footballing interests, but her 15-year-old son Justin, which simply won't do. With the week's sport earmarked, including midweek rugby, Wendy resorts to dousing her impeccable skin in makeup. Now comes the tough call. She scans through her meticulously stacked shelf, brimming with dozens of £50 plus purchases to complement her conventionally beautiful face. Flustered by the wealth of options, she settles for a spot of subtle Giorgio Armani foundation. She ruffles her naturally thick blonde curly hair while smirking in the vintage mirror.
Justin!
She stomps into the living room to find Justin militantly awaiting, dressed as instructed, in oversized, faded rags, as to make them appear impoverished. They're off for a newspaper interview, instigated by Wendy, to bewail their alleged dire financial predicament and highlight the government's role in quashing living standards for families like theirs. Another scuppered Saturday for Justin. But what with Wendy's football ban, the car journey at least offers food for thought beyond bedroom-bound, substandard daytime TV marathons or household chores. Having volunteered to slump in the back, Justin gloomily gazes out of Wendy's Toyota sports car's window, a regular fixture of his time as they hurtle around bogus appointments, manifested to solidify the illusion of Justin's disability. They're warmly greeted at the Conway News headquarters by Julie, an unassuming yet fiercely ambitious local journalist who entered the game late in her 30s, having grown tired of scrubbing bedpans in a care home for the elderly.
Justin, Wendy, cheers for joining us today.
Our utmost pleasure,
Wendy regimentally says.
Quite the drive, eh?
Wendy coldly shrugs. The prospect of acquiring both narcissistic supply and possibly more benefits showers her with the motivation needed for such drives. Julie smiles and leads them to her unremarkable office.
Do take a seat.
She hands Wendy and Justin an ice-cold bottle of water each from a mini cooler. Wendy glowers at the bottle, then at the steaming hot paper cup of coffee in front of Julie, and subtly grimaces.
I presume Charles filled you in on our planned line of questioning.
Somewhat.
Right. Our primary focus will be on the circumstances of your tricky financial predicament, and we'll also touch on how our state has let you down, your experience, or lack of, with the local mental health services, and any thoughts on how the welfare system could be improved upon.
Julie turns to Justin, who's picking the side of his finger to the point of minor laceration.
Sound good to you, mate?
Spot on, yeah. Just what I'm catting to chat about.
Julie crams in a desperately needed hefty swig of coffee.
Marvellous.
Reluctant, forced-in interviewees are the ultimate subconscious energy vampires.
I commend the bravery on both your parts. We reckon this will help scores of those in similar circumstances.
And how is this brave?
Few put themselves out like this for the sake of social progression, especially those still in school.
First of all, what is our fee? Old Charles only coughed up a ballpark figure, see?
Julie rolls her eyes.
Classic Charles. For a story like this, we offer £80.
Wendy's eyes whirl in shoddily disguised disgust.
Unfortunately, we're only a local paper.
The clicks you'll get on this.
I can only apologise for any lack of clarity. Do you wish to proceed?
Wendy folds her arms.
Be daft not to, having blown 50 quid on petrol.
Excellent stuff. Now, we do have a slight issue, Wendy.
Another one.
Your choice of attire.
Wendy peeks down at herself and shrugs.
For the story we're selling, you know, a family suffocated by government austerity, brushed under the breadline.
What are you trying to say?
With your permed hair, glamorous outfit, well, some may struggle to buy it. Forget it, you're here now.
Conway News will get the clicks either way, whether controversially or not. Nothing riles Tory Britain quite like a female single mother scamming benefits, rinsing precious, righteous taxpayers who contribute a measly grand a year out of their hypothetical dough. The government will love it.
Anything you'd like to open with?
Where do I start? This scummy Tory government are a shambles. Not an ounce of compassion for the chronically disabled.
Justin grits his teeth and looks away. He has long grown accustomed to the bogus slandering of his mental state for the family's financial benefit. Half an hour of dissociation should see this sickly chapter out, until the articles paraded around school, that is.
Sinking right back into the Victorian age. Well, I mean, maybe things were better then. Nothing was diagnosed. Wouldn't have a clue about his issues. Could have carried on as normal.
This is a line chucked in to ascertain her shock at Justin's diagnosis. Had she lived before the invention of disability benefits, her workhouse residence and ominous death from starvation before turning 30 is a hypothetical foregone conclusion. Benefit scrounging skills are hardly transferable to that uncompromising era. With all opening wobbles aside, Wendy unloads her pre-scripted, sympathy-inducing rant, which goes entirely to plan. Justin chimes in at just the right moments while appearing sullen throughout, which entails no acting whatsoever. She could not be prouder of herself, and for once, Justin. However, not even his exquisitely executed, hollow performance buys him a viewing of the day's FA Cup games. 2.99p mayo chicken McDonald's burgers prove the peak of his reward. So, back home to Minford it is, where Justin ploughs through his long division homework, slouched at the desk of his sweaty attic room, in their 2-bedroom detached house on the upper outskirts of Bangor, with a lethargic, lopsided posture. A room entirely void of colour and personalisation, both down to their perpetual house moving owing to Wendy's lofty, unattainable standards and her invasive nature. Anything Justin does to his room, whether shuffling the TV into a non-neck-jarring position or whacking up a football poster, is met with either scorn or, more often than not, a comprehensive room reshuffling done to stifle any brewing autonomy. While the homework proves dreary, Justin knows his time is coming soon. Time for a bit of FIFA. His oversized, faded clothing bears the buckets of sweat, signifying his anticipation. At 12 o'clock on the dot, as per usual, a barely audible clang rattles from downstairs, firing up his jaded eyes.
Here we go, showtime.
Wendy, clanging her metal weed grinder, bags between 15 and 25 minutes for a game of FIFA while she's outside, bumming her joint. She adamantly deters Justin from partaking in any football-related activities, whether playing the game, watching on TV, or playing FIFA, Justin's all-time favourite game by a country mile. Despite using the possible dementia from heading the ball excuse to mimic concern, this is just another strand of her all-encompassing control. Aside from a reasonable 2-hour daily limit, Wendy doesn't stop Justin from playing other video games. She had no problem with him spending birthday money on Grand Theft Auto 5, but he is categorically banned from playing FIFA. Justin peeks out of his room's velux window to see Wendy swatting a black cat off her garden lounger. He leaps into action. Under a corner floorboard, carefully covered by a rug, only accessible because of the loose carpet, lies FIFA 22. Wary of avoiding the slightest creak, he lifts it and shoves its disc into his Xbox console. Justin is Crystal Palace through and through, having been taken to Selhurst Park by his father, Greg, at the age of 9, the last time Wendy let them see each other. Such is his enthrallment that Justin forgets to whack on the TV's mute button as the console fires up, a mistake he swiftly makes amends for within seconds. It's Liverpool up next, in his Crystal Palace career mode, where he's battling dreaded relegation on legendary difficulty. He passes it back to Joachim Andersen from kickoff and plays a sweeping 60-yard pass out to Zaha on the left wing. Zaha takes a sumptuous first touch, pirouettes around Trent Alexander-Arnold, cuts into the box and smashes a pearl into Alisson's top right-hand corner.
Get in!
As Liverpool kick back off, the house's electric cuts out, bringing Justin's basking glory to a premature end. Knowing he's bang in trouble, this rare surge of vigour soon evaporates. With the cut electric locking the game inside, he forces the disc tray open before scrambling to bury FIFA's case under the floorboard. Once GTA 5's whacked in, he restlessly sits down as loud footsteps clamber up the stairs.
You better not have been!
Was on GTA.
Never has GTA brought you such delirium.
Won a pool tournament. Didn't even get to save it.
Wendy roughly examines the 5 cases of Justin's game pile.
Fucking lying to me, I can tell. Middle of my fag, the lot.
She unplugs Justin's 42-inch telly and lugs it down the stairs on her shoulder.
Footy's not on until 12:30. I had an hour left.
Justin wails and punches his springy bed. After garnering no response, Justin slaps the pile of games and marches downstairs to find Wendy padlocking his pride and joy in a vintage dark brown oak cupboard.
What about my precious little routine you're always on about? Can't be that fundamental, can it?
Wendy ferociously glares over. From the age of 3, she pushed for Justin to be dished a mental health label. By the age of 4, she got her wish when he was diagnosed with Asperger's, thus bagging her a cushy recurring wad of disability benefits known as PIPs on his behalf. Enough to ensure that, alongside other forged benefits, she has no need to work. Justin has historically fought this and firmly entrusted in his sanity. However, she insists he carries out a strict routine to publicly exhibit these symptoms. To maintain the masquerade, Wendy forces Justin to wear a hearing aid that he doesn't need to school and pick their current location based on its remote nature, a brutal uphill hour-long walk away from Bangor Secondary School. Wendy's logic being that if she further isolates Justin, fewer neighbours are around to condemn the rare glimmers of faulty parenting she fails to keep under wraps. Not only that, but it restricts Justin's social life. For the most part, Justin has no issues making friends, but heavy isolation-induced depression has stifled this confidence over time. For the backchat alone, Wendy tortuously breaks Justin's routine by dumping him with his least favourite reminders. She was going to drop him at the Colberts, a family of 3 with an age-appropriate son, but instead he's bound for the Porter's place, an execrable nightmare. Not only are their children pestiferous, toxic little 7 and 9-year-old brats, but their parents treat Justin as such. A 7 p.m. curfew and 9 p.m. bedtime in a screenless room is non-negotiable, only made worse by Justin not owning a phone. Wendy fully well knows this and cackles her way to the ATM. Justin's weekend highlight is a live Bethesda athletic football match, with Clive's house a mere few metres from the ground. But being a 5:30 p.m. kickoff, he's forced back for 7 p.m, just as a captivating second half unfolds, with the score agonisingly level at 3-3. A sneering parting comment sees Justin spend Sunday night stewing.
Have cunts in school been taking the piss? This can't happen.
Despite pestering Wendy to add razors to the shopping list, she never does. Set half an hour earlier than needed, his 6 a.m. alarm dramatically whirls after a patchy night's kip. Justin heads straight for the bathroom. Justin's never had freedom over his choice of haircut, a source of splenetic resentment that, until now, had been mostly subdued. He despises it being long, a mixture of curl and wave that offers neither, leaving a nothing mop of hair void of identity. Justin was settled for a buzz cut, anything to free his head of the weight and avoid morning tinkering. Spotting an old pot of Dax wax at the back of the bathroom cupboard, Justin experiments by roughly scooping his barnet into a quiff. Sticking his dangling, uneven side chops behind his ears only adds to the mess. He sighs at the lopsided result and waxes it forward instead. The red Dax wax's density leaves parts sticking up and small clumps glued into his hair. Not the end of the world, as he rinses most out in the shower and lets his hair sit as it falls. After whacking the wax back in place for another day, he finds a pink 2-blade Bic hair razor with his mother's grisly dark leg hair wedged in the blades. It may not be ideal, yet Justin seizes the chance to utilise his YouTube shaving education. First he takes a picture of the cupboard's layout. Everything must return to its precise order to avoid Wendy's wrath. After sifting out what he can of the leftover leg hair, which reveals the blade's early stage rust, Justin applies blue hand soap to his upper lip, cautiously shaves the first bit, and winces in pain. He gazes at his partly shaved moustache, grins, and cracks on with the rest, growing to relish the rush of endorphins gifted from the stinging pain. While Justin rocks up to school early, his mother's dismissive voice lurks at the back of his head. Despite holding energy to burn, he passively wanders through the densely populated fields in his oversized school uniform rather than joining the various ongoing football games. First up is physics, with science being among Justin's most loathed subjects. Prone to in-class dissociation, other than during sports lessons, he's an average student at best. On this occasion, he picks the front row to slouch down on, as Mr. Beckinsdale delivers a monotone presentation on kinematics, a costly mistake that Justin's sleep-deprived mind fails to spot. With the back row 20 metres from the screen, those perched there move forward and sit on top of the second row of desks. One lad relishing this is boisterous, chain-wearing Blake Bolton, an Adidas stripe-wearing lump, already caked in facial hair, without the maturity to go alongside it. Justin recently left Serfon School because of bullying, partly why he's failed to establish himself among a group. Both this and his subsequent solitary reputation mean he's often the butt of classroom debauchery. This second set group, a plethora of Set 1 material underachievers, is a class where it's bound to transpire. Blake kicks off proceedings by lifting the back of Justin's jumper with his outstretched leg.
Get fucked!
Justin punches Blake's leg. Mr. Beckinsdale begrudgingly stops, throws a flittering glare Justin's way, and recommences the dour rambling. After leaving it a safe 30 seconds, Blake takes advantage of the teacher's turned back by repeating his classroom sin, this time inadvertently revealing Justin's torso and belly to a couple of sniggering female students.
Prick!
Justin grabs a ruler and swipes Blake's leg with a semi-sharp edge.
Justin Billings! Corridor! Now!
Blake and his mates howl as Justin walks out with a sunken, bright red blushing face. All other than Hugh, who sympathetically looks on with bulging eyes stacked with empathy. A grisly post-class dressing down ensures Justin's 5 minutes late for lunch.
No point fighting the system. Game's rigged.
After waiting by the back door, Hugh catches up to a rapidly paced Justin as he brushes past. While Hugh hasn't come close to being bullied at school, a mentally abusive father gifts him insight and compassion into Justin's plight.
Don't worry about Blake, harmless lad he is.
Hugh reassuringly says.
I'll spark him out one day, you know.
They approach a playground football game, where Blake's calling the shots from midfield, ferociously demanding blood and guts from his teammates without leading by example.
He just thinks everyone should be the same. Can't act non-conformers. Now he knows he's losing that battle and, well, can't get his little meatball head round it.
Blake slips on a muddy bit of turf.
Come for the game, man. I know you sound. He has anything to say about it, I'll 2-foot him right down his glass knee.
My commitments beckon. Wish I could.
Give us your number and Bella's after you're done. Meatball won't let anyone go in for dinner till they've had at least the first of 21.
Phone's down the shop.
Hugh shrugs in subtle resignation.
Cracked it on the wall. Palace letting in that fourth. In a bit.
He paces off. Justin never owned a phone, not even a Nokia brick. In reality, she fears losing control of his usage and, most importantly, research avenues. First up on today's enforced duties is a spurious appointment at a private hearing clinic. Pointlessly dressed up in overly smart office clothing, Wendy breaks the speed limit the whole half-hour drive to Carnarvon, just getting them there on time. She could just buy a fake hearing aid off the internet, but covers every detail in her search for sympathy as a disabled child's mother and carer. Henry Rowlinson awaits, a slickly dressed private hearing doctor with an array of accolades framed on his office wall. As strictly instructed, Justin delivers rehearsed, in-depth analysis on the hissing and throbbing supposedly dogging his educational focus.
Given that Justin's tinnitus symptoms have intensified, yes, we have no reason not to provide a minuscule upgrade,
Henry says to Wendy, having been bulldozed after expressing minor doubts.
In just recently, we have a new range, quite the plethora of fresh options.
He passes Wendy a hearing aid leaflet full of non-visible inside-the-ear hearing aids, a far cry from Justin's current black behind-the-ear piece.
Adds an element of subtlety.
Well, we'll go for the same again.
I wouldn't charge you any extra, on account of your unwavering loyalty.
Behind the ear will be quite fine.
With a fresh order placed for an exact matching black behind-the-ear hearing aid, Wendy runs for the car. They're running late and left with only half an hour to reach Bangor for Justin's counselling session with CAMS, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service.
Get a bloody move on!
They soon find themselves stuck in traffic, virtually guaranteeing their tardiness. Wendy manically seeks an opening, barely listening to Justin pitch his desire for a mobile phone.
What's so wrong about the idea, though?
Fucking pensioner prick. Shouldn't be on the road.
Wendy says after a 90-year-old in a 60s Rolls-Royce cuts across her opening into a marginally faster lane.
I'm gonna be 16.
It's better for your mental health.
I can't plan things with no one. Only mug in the whole school with no phone. Me. Got ripped enough in primary, let alone now.
Wendy rolls her eyes.
And what if I miss the bus? There goes the old routine, right down the drain. You told me autistic people had heightened sensitivity. Causes things to go wrong, right?
Yes, you do.
Well, shouldn't I have one then? In the event of one of these phantom bloody meltdowns I supposedly have? Do wonders for the benefit black?
Toxic little tone on you today. Better have it sorted out before we get there.
Justin dabs the drops of blood drawn from his hairline.
It takes graft keeping to your routine, and you're not putting in. It affects me when you don't, and I have enough to think about. What if that had hit your eye? A cancelled session won't look good, could drag us right down in the shitter. Think before you speak.
They arrive 10 minutes late to the converted listed building serving as the county's CAMS headquarters and rush inside. Justin's quietly confident counsellor Vivian awaits. She did the same job in Kent where her family lived until relocating to Gwynedd a year ago. She never anticipated the depth of issues facing North Wales' mental health system. Chronic staff shortages, dire financial backing, constantly turning away severely sick children for treatment as a result, leaving her on the brink of loathing a job she started with unbridled exuberance. The sight of Justin somewhat perks her up. After the hearing clinic's bad news, it's fair to say Wendy's slapped-ass face turns a whole new shade of sour.
Justin's formidable progress is a brilliant sign, Wendy, and as such, we see it only fitting to reduce him to monthly appointments.
Vivian defensively says, in bewilderment at Wendy's hostile reaction. Bottomless fear of their benefits being slashed trumps any joy of her son's progress.
It's very much a positive, Wendy.
Given all the blues he's hacked this week, I think you'll reconsider.
Justin subtly rolls his eyes and internally sighs. That's his cue card to act up, keep to the script and swerve psychological punishment later on.
Oh yeah.
He nods with his head down while mustering performance energy.
Been feeling dead worthless. My dad, he hasn't wanted to see me for years now.
Sorry to hear that, Justin.
Didn't care initially. But over time it's, dented my pride, you know? Feeling the brunt of that as of late. In fact, he doesn't even help with bills. Let us rot away on benefits.
While in two minds, Vivian retains her professionalism and empathetically nods. Chapter 2. Wendy frantically ejects £300 from the ATM, vehemently proud of herself for not pulling the entire $400 of Justin's month's PIPS payment. Lurking the entire time, just out of sight, is her worst nightmare, Justin's Cockney father, Greg, who wipes her smug, snidey grin clean off.
Descending into the depths of poverty. North Wales' most clicked article of the year. My poor son. The face of it.
Don't you start.
Against his will, I have no doubt. For nothing it fucking looks like to me, other than giving away your location.
Wendy stuffs the money in her pocket and struts off.
Don't think for a minute your maintenance is going up.
Wendy storms back over to Greg.
We'll see about that one.
Be doing my own tiling jobs by summer. Court fees. Far from still being an issue.
Wendy's face drops.
That how you want it going?
He needs time to process the thought of seeing you. You know that.
Asking time's over. Few years over, in fact. Been looking, trying to find you. Best part of a week.
Powder must have hindered you.
I've got 3 days left in that grotty fucking Fleabag hotel down there, and I'm going to see him more than once before I go.
No regard for his routine.
You might be able to pull that one off on doctors, benefit gatekeepers, sympathetic parents on the playground. But not me. Fine, my boy is.
You're not there day in, day out.
You know he is, and he'll be even better knowing he's going Selhurst Park Saturday with his old man swagging a signed Zaha shirt for the occasion.
Wendy's world of secrecy could come tumbling down. A meeting like that will surely poison Justin's mind, undermining years of effort to steer him clear from football. She nods and walks off.
9 a.m. sharp.
Despite being rammed with lumbersome sports gear and schoolbooks, food shopping duties are bestowed on Justin straight after school. Their entire week's shopping to be carried 2 miles, the last quarter of which being up a deathly hill. 4 bags go in a hold-all, while the other 4 are carried by hand. This could have been done on a day littered with appointments, therefore freeing up a school day evening. Not on Wendy's watch. Another sweaty late afternoon, cramped in their deliberately 50s-styled light turquoise and pink kitchen, awaits. A rare one in peace, it seems, as Wendy packs her handbag in a blistering rush.
And if the chicken's not right, your next 2 weeks' pocket money will be going on a takeaway.
Extra 15 minutes, I know.
And I better not be hanging around like a prat for it when I get back from nails either.
Now you going? Nail place 3 doors from Mazda?
After flying through cooking the chicken stir-fry, he's left with just enough time for a kickabout outside. He leaps down into the boggy sheep field opposite their house, before digging out his football from a snug gap in the dry stone wall. Only 5 glorious minutes in, his ghastly mother hurtles back up the lane. Luckily for Justin, leaving the chance to conceal his beloved football and scamper up the wall, seemingly undetected. According to Wendy's unassailable standards, Justin's rushed nosh is far from up to scratch. As promised, he is tasked with throwing the lot away before ordering a £30 Chinese takeaway. It arrives lukewarm, at best, as does every takeaway summoned to their remote location. Yet Wendy devours her half, leaving a mere smidge of rice left over, which cannot be said for Justin. Put off by the sheer dread of EastEnders, a show he is virtually forced to not only watch, but avidly partake and discuss the mechanics of, he leaves his food for later.
I knew Max had it in him. Spiritual alignment's been way off last few weeks, I'd say. Didn't I tell you he'd belt Ian 1?
Yeah, spot on.
Ofcom offices will be roaring tonight, swarming in complaints. 75, maybe even 100.
Chapter 3. Saturday soon came, and Justin was nowhere to be seen, leaving Greg stood up once again in Spa car park. Wendy hadn't bothered telling Justin of Greg's plans, spurning his glorious early 16th birthday present. Crushed in defeat, Greg swerved the 4-hour drive to Selhurst Park, instead opting for a sullen few pints at a local Bethesda pub to see out his failed venture before trudging home the next day. That was the plan, anyway. Despite being drug-free for well over a decade, temptation got the better of him when offered a half gram of cocaine in the beer garden. However, Greg accidentally shortchanged the dealer, handing over £20 less than instructed. This wasn't noticed until the dealer got home. When adamant he'd been shafted, he squared back to the pub with 2 goons to dish Greg a right hiding. While Greg tried to calm the situation, offering to pay an extra £10 in goodwill for his mistake, they weren't having it for a second. Greg's first punch in self-defense knocked the dealer out cold, right into a coma, and Greg was soon arrested. Knowing better than to snitch his way to a suspended sentence, Greg was placed on remand, without the opportunity of bail. Unfortunately, the dealer's situation deteriorated over the coming days. By the next week, he passed away in his sleep, leaving Greg facing manslaughter charges. No cameras were working in the pub, while witnesses declined to back up Greg in his plea for self-defense, leading to an 8-year prison sentence. With the case going largely unreported in the media, Justin never found out. Chapter 4. Vivian Sawyer was born into a middle-class Kent family, seemingly from the outside, having enjoyed a pleasant, moderately prosperous childhood. Her docile father, Kevin, ran a modestly successful garage, while her mother, Joyce, taught religious education at the local school, making them well-known figures in the Hawkhurst area. Joyce soon developed schizophrenia, which cut short her career by the time Vivian started school. This, coupled with her father's soft, oblivious nature, ensured there were spells of erratic, inconsistent parenting amounting to neglect during Vivian's childhood. While Vivian performed well enough at school to move on to higher education, her trauma manifested in her being highly promiscuous as a teenager, a form of attention-seeking, knowing full well that sleeping around in a small town would see their family become the brunt of chapel gossip. She soon found work in her field and gained a stellar reputation before meeting her husband Lionel, 15 years her senior, at a posh pub where they hit it off right away. Previously teetotal, barring the odd drink, she began abusing prescription drugs after the birth of Harrison, the first of her 3 children with Lionel. A horrendous spell of postnatal depression followed, which only intensified her painkiller cravings. A fiercely ambitious dentist, Lionel hammers out the overtime, never more so than during Vivian's tough, suicidal ideation-ridden spell of clinical depression. She has drunk regularly since, mostly in the evenings, while also now abusing prescription drugs such as Valium. While she has maintained her job, early promise of climbing the ladder now looks slim. They moved to Gwynedd from Kent so Lionel could start up his own dentistry practice, further isolating the family from friends and sinking Vivian into drug abuse to cope. Of course, being in the mental health service bears its challenges. While mostly immune to counter-transference from clients, there is something about seeing the Billings duo that sends Vivian over the edge. Not Justin, who she feels sorry for, but Wendy, perhaps the darkest, miserable excuse of a parent she's ever encountered. A nailed-on energy vampire whose mere expected presence strips her of hope hours before their appointments. As such, an extra 20 minutes of car loitering is needed before facing household duties. Besides, who wouldn't when their parking space faces beautiful mountains? This customary sneaky fag in the car becomes 3 today, a habit she has to hide from Lionel. Not because of potential dental ramifications, but due to their middle child, Sarah, being born with lung defects owing to Vivian smoking early in her pregnancy. While limited to a modest apartment in Kent, their budget stretches to no end in rural Gwynedd. As per Lionel and Vivian's savings, they bought a gorgeous detached family house, at least 50 metres from the next dwelling, with 2 acres of garden and their own drive. Chugging down a Red Bull with the nightly Valium means 3 alarms are needed to wake Vivian the next morning. Weighed down by a scorching headache, barely able to rise, she somehow finds a gear of grit to roll out of bed. Lie-ins are a thing of the past. Majestically, Lionel has planned a day out with the 3 kids, gifting Vivian the chance to space out and savour the dregs of her high before a half day at work. She flips them all pancakes after 3 shots of espresso, just enough to halt her collapse from exhaustion, while Lionel dishes Hugo his daily mini Welsh lesson.
Abersoch.
Blake squares in and cackles, having risen from his 4-hour sleep, doubled up as an enforced gaming interval after his eyes refused to stay open.
Fucking mug.
Blake.
Never gonna learn Welsh, is he? Daft, eh?
At least he's trying.
Blake throws white bread in the toaster.
Last year of school? No point for me, is there?
Well, for one, it's mandatory for a host of jobs.
Might help you integrate.
Blake rolls his eyes.
What you pissing off for anyway?
He asks Lionel. Blake's face sinks in envy. Lionel tuts and glares at Vivian, who feels the burn of his gaze without taking her eyes off the pancakes.
No space left in the car.
Got a 7-seater, Squire?
In essence, but not with all the luggage we're lugging.
Blake resentfully nods. While Lionel has gone to strenuous lengths to build a relationship with him, Blake hasn't stopped acting out since he and Vivian first eloped. Blake's own father, a mean, snivelling alcoholic, physically abused Vivian, often in front of Blake, ensuring he became overly protective of her. This manifested itself in him subconsciously doing everything possible to scare Lionel off. While he has mostly surrendered this quest, their relationship has never recovered, leaving Blake as the family's undisputed black sheep. Barely refreshed from her idle morning, Vivian scuttles off for work. First up on today's shift, that she arrives on time for by the skin of her teeth, is another stomach churner, Darcy Quinney, a true Gwynedd bandit in the making. Darcy is forced in for counselling due to her latest suspended juvenile prison sentence, a year for battering a grown man in a park for slandering her family name. Being just under 16, she escaped prison by a glib remorse-shaped whisker. Fiercely chewing gum with her mouth open in flash red and white tracksuit bottoms, Vivian shudders at her sight. Hair recently chopped into a sharp, shoulder-length straightened bob only intensifies her haunting gaze. Darcy sits with her arms crossed, instantly bored out of her unstimulated mind.
Loving the bob?
Vivian vacantly suggests.
You what?
Your hair. It's pretty.
Darcy scoffs and rustles her pale hand through her barnet.
How have you been adapting back to life at home?
Nothing I ain't seen before.
Right. Not always a promising sign.
Don't expect me to open up after missing the last session.
That's fine. Totally understandable.
Do you expect? New cunt in here every week.
Service is well and truly screwed, I'm afraid.
You don't say.
Is your mother's boyfriend a safe person?
Don't know him, no?
We have to ask, owing to her history of abusive partners.
Won't be doing fuck all to me. Telling you now.
Well, you have to be careful with your reactions, Darcy. We don't want to see you back in juvie or locked up in Bearwyn.
Well, if he touches me, be worth every second inside.
If anything happens, you must tell us. We can get you straight back into care, into a safe environment.
Do what you fucking want. Be 16 soon. Been saving up for years.
She grins.
Fat flat coming my way. Watch this space.
Just be careful where you make your money, Darcy.
What? Trying to say I can't make money? Because I look like this and I'm under 16? Look outside the box and it's there. Maybe not for prudy civil servant fucks like you.
Darcy.
Nah, let's have it right. You're assuming the worst. That someone like me can't make dough in a decent way. No way am I settling for Brassic times. Pathetic value loo roll, tinned fruit, electric meters cutting out my shower, dole appointments every week, black and crisis loans for half a gram of bash. Fuck that. Wreckhead customers blowing their rent uncharged can cry about all that. Dealing will take me to the very top.
It's her shift on the streets today for happy hour, where crack and heroin customers queue up through rain or shine. She hopes to soon be promoted from peddling duties, but understands the need to ply her trade and win the trust of suppliers. Grant, a grisly mountaineering coat-wearing addict, twice her size, is first up. After being passed only 2 bags, his eyes anxiously flitter in all directions.
Thought it was 3 for 20.
Grant bellows.
Limited time offer, mate.
Darcy insists while checking her path left and right for police.
Fuck that, get Jensen on the phone now.
Darcy clenches her fist.
You want to keep your voice down?
Gonna make me, are you? Bullshit, this.
Darcy eerily nods.
Been getting 3 for 20 off him for years.
Have you, yeah?
Grant gets in Darcy's face.
Won't have no little slag changing that.
Darcy knocks Grant out cold with a right hook. She stares the other addicts down, who, in desperate need of their fix, resist the urge to scamper off.
10 at a pop, alright?
The addicts in line nod before police sirens whirl in the distance.
Shit.
Darcy sprints off. Craving power and influence over her surroundings and circumstances, dealing is the only way, bar woefully paid paper rounds, for Darcy to make money as a minor. Sheer neglect as a child, including but not limited to Louise regularly leaving Darcy upstairs while drinking and sniffing cocaine with her mates, led Darcy to develop this narcissistic sense of self. Today is no different. Darcy stumbles into the familiar blare of hardstyle and sorry sight of her haggard mother Louise, scrawny, tight vest wearing stepdad Paul, and their 2 delinquent mates, Baz and Noel. Louise and Paul were together for most of Darcy's young childhood, but split up for a few years before recently reconciling. This was mainly down to Paul's precarious housing situation that he planned on solving by getting back with the far older Louise, with whom he shares limited attraction. Former cocaine plates and empty beer bottles litter the table, making Darcy's timing spot on. It's only been 20 minutes since they ran out of cocaine, a sweet spot of time in between their buzz wearing off and having sorted out more. Darcy can be of use here. While they're oblivious to the scale of her dealing, she often sorts them out, meaning a short walk to the park and back to pretend to pick some up. when in fact, as we know, she has a stash of her own and uses the walk for a spliff break. As part of this favour, Darcy asks for 10% of whatever they get. She then puts this aside, netting her an extra £250 once this builds up to 1/8 of an ounce, their customary order, which she then resells to them. Considering her weekly financial targets are now met, today's sale ensures Darcy can lay low for the night. Starving from the day's excursions, she heads to the kitchen counter for some well-deserved nourishment. Paul kicks right off, way before she can bring the wok to the stove. Darcy is vegetarian, and while her mother's content with verbally prodding her life choice, Paul takes it a step further.
None of that veggie shit, I pray.
Louise remarks.
Windows wide open, don't worry.
Place reeked after last time.
Got to eat, haven't I?
Oh, don't be whipping that shit up in here.
Not your fucking house, boy.
Just as much his as yours.
Pissing away my free time, scrambling around for you wreckheads, and I'm not even allowed to eat.
We're the ones who have to session here.
Fuck you, ABH.
Eh?
Not taking it off gimpy guests.
Piss off with that rabbit shit. I won't tell you again.
Void of strength to argue for once, Darcy storms out and opts for her 5th vegan McDonald's wrap dinner of the week. Being a vegetarian without access to cooking facilities somewhat compromises her health, something a discounted egg crest Tesco sandwich for later will hardly cure. It's a rare night in which Darcy has nowhere else to go. No parties, street corner sessions, or even drug deals to fulfill. Not even UFC holds her attention, not least after losing a 5-fold accumulator by the first fight. Being this supposedly brash, hard-nut young girl takes it out of her, leaving this improvised recuperation time thoroughly welcome. However, it doesn't last. It never does. By 1 a.m, having sniffed their entire 1/8 of cocaine, Paul scours the house for entertainment. An avenue not explored of late is Darcy's room. Once sensing the subtle scuttling up the stairs, the hovering outside of her door, synonymous with predators planning their move, she whacks on a knuckle duster, hides her arms under the duvet, and composes herself. Taking him out shouldn't be an issue, but holding back enough to spare his life will require some humility. Paul eventually stumbles in, barely keeping his footing after 14 hours on the beers.
Fuck right off.
Hey, none of that lip.
It's best you leave.
My fucking house too.
My fucking room?
Of my house that you've damaged. Just seen the fence.
Darcy sighs. After being jumped by rival dealers last week, she sprinted home and leaped over the garden fence, partially bending it.
What are you gonna do about it, eh? Louise is gonna flip.
I'll pay damage.
Don't want money though, do I?
He rustles through Darcy's hair.
Been a while, ain't it? I've missed you and that sexy veggie frame of yours.
Catching Paul off guard, Darcy smacks him around the jaw. He taps his now cracked front tooth as Darcy gets up and clenches her fists.
Dentist fees and all now. Might have to get Baz and Noel up here. Been sorting us out for a while with debt like yours.
Will I, yeah?
Coke alone won't cut it.
He stumbles back and knocks his head against a window, which cracks. Now's her chance. Darcy pummels Paul until he's floored and stricken before sneaking out the back door. Fortunately for her, blaring music ensures Louise's cretin entourage remain none the wiser. Chapter 5. As students galore shuffle between lessons without a care in the world, Justin's day falls well and truly off a cliff. For the 5th time, he sifts through the pinned-up Year 11 football squad announcement poster, praying his brewing short-sight issues are to blame. But they're not, and for the first time in a year, he is frozen out of the squad, having rocked up to every possible lunchtime training session, feeling hard done by, doesn't come close. Unwilling to let this slide, Justin marches to the gym. Daffyd, the school's young head of PE, a lad with all the vigour of a teacher yet to be bogged down by curricular constraints, laughs and jokes with Siwan, a female teacher that he is seeing on the sly.
How are you, Billings?
Justin ignores C1 while striding for Daffyd.
Weather's at 5. Don't keep me waiting again.
Daffyd winks at C1, who struts off with a cheeky grin.
Justin, lad!
Daffyd warmly says,
Not even on the bench?
Hey, your runs are great, touch has improved, but most of them play together, same club, every Saturday. And you're not confident out there.
But why am I not in there?
They smell it and they don't want to pass to you. I have to think of that. Strength in depth is unreal, sorry Justin.
There may be hope yet. Sick to his back teeth of refereeing games himself, Justin becomes just the ticket of a version Daffyd has been yearning for. They agree on Justin refereeing Year 9's game, luckily played at lunchtime, avoiding conflict with his home-bound duties. Throwing on the black and white kit, standing on the centre circle before kickoff and shaking the captain's hands provides a rush of pride ordinarily alien to the boy. Players on both sides test him in the first 10 minutes, especially those from his own school. An early booking for their midfield enforcer Brute for calling him a bender sets an early tone, impressing the vast crowd with his match management. Daffyd rushes over at full time before even congratulating his own team, who pick up a solid 4-2 victory.
Cheers for that, Billings. Superb out there.
Was I?
Bloody right. Here you go.
Daffyd hands Justin a £10 note.
Mate of mine runs the reffing course round here. I can get you in. Free of charge if you're game.
Joy surges through Justin's starving veins. Rarely has anyone acknowledged his talents.
Wouldn't be allowed.
Offers always there. School games, of course. Whenever.
Food for thought. It's Justin's dream to be involved in football. Refereeing could be just the alternative, if done in secret. £35 a game is no joke either, not for someone below working age who's financially dependent on their mother. With scarce time to spend the money, saving would pave a potential escape from this nightmare. First of all, tonight needs conquering. Of all 5 babysitters, Wendy dumps Justin with on rotation. The Edwards are by far the dreariest. A childless couple in their early 30s, Chris and Daisy resentfully do it for nothing more than alcohol and gambling funds. Barely a word is uttered for Justin's first 3 awkward hours there. Made to sit on a wooden chair, despite there being 2 sofas, he couldn't care less, while absorbing the Merseyside derby on Daisy's iPad. Chris slouches back on their tacky torn sofa, slurping his 4th Red Bull, cherishing every sip while glued to ITV racing. While £50 is their babysitting fee, that is unfortunately spoken for, Daisy's online poker game being the guzzler on this occasion. Tonight's cocaine budget is therefore left in the hands of a 4-fold horse racing bet, of which the first has just come in. Daisy marches over, carefully counting the £50 with typical drizzly disdain.
50 on Cora then?
Yeah.
Chris mutters, utterly engrossed in Matt Chapman's flamboyant punditry. Daisy whacks £40 in Chris's hand and flops out on the vacant 3-seat sofa.
Hang on a minute.
Whacked that daft Welsh Prem treble on mine, didn't you?
For a quid?
Nah, defo a tenner.
Don't fucking lie to me.
Pretty simple really. For a 50 deposit, you get 40 back. Because you owe me.
Chris jumps up, knocking the dregs of his dear Red Bull on the floor.
Cheeky cunt!
What?
Had enough of this, you know.
Taking back was mine.
Chris goes red in the face and turns away.
Proper little scammer, you.
Amidst the chaos, Justin sneaks off with the tablet.
Oi! Where do you think you're going with that?
Can I watch the game upstairs?
No chance.
Yeah, you can. Go on, lad.
Fuck you, Chris. I've got poker and chess after. £10 a game.
Not until 9:30, though, is it?
Courtesy of a rare spot of empathy, Chris relinquishes his phone for Justin to watch sport on. While their spare attic room is nothing but a bare, musky grot hole, it's a room Justin will never forget. An all-nighter of sport. Football, boxing, UFC, before a bit of early morning Australian footy ensures he's all smiles upon leaving, despite throbbing shoulder pain from lying on a thin exercise mat all night.
No, it's not happening.
Chris says to Wendy by the door, having been fiercely instructed by Daisy to sever this occasional babysitting gig.
There was me thinking you were mates.
You never have Barney's little ones. Give Daisy a lift to doll, or fuck all.
Wendy storms off in a huff.
I'll remember that one next time you're snooping for a foster's mate.
Right pair of mugs you take us for. Dumping him here at 9 every week.
After a 9-pint night last night, there is no chance Wendy Billings is missing a hair of the dog or 5 to see off this crippling hangover. While able to leave Justin home alone, she refuses to in case of him feeling and seeming independent to others. This means dragging him along tonight, which can occasionally be engineered in rural areas, especially for top customers like her. Another Banjax Saturday, but this is far from alien to him. Past pub experience has seen Justin build on his exemplary dissociation skills. Resigned to his gloomy fate, Justin trudges in behind Wendy, who is by far the trendiest among the night's predominantly industrial revellers. It's rammed, a typical Saturday night on this side of town's only pub. 2 fires roar, adding to the sweaty carnage unfolding among the swathes of rugby lads, all 8 pints down after Wales' colossal Six Nations thumping of England. A shoddy dearth of insulation in the Tudorian building's walls is all that separates air moisture level from that of a scatty techno basement rave. Wendy's flirtatious glance the burly barman Ian's way puts his mind and trepidation of losing his licence aside as Justin takes a seat in the corner. Keenly awaiting with a half pint for Justin and large glass of Malbec for Wendy is Elliot, Wendy's infamous toy boy. Packing vast boy band and Zen lifelong backpacker vibes with his blonde streaked hair, him and Wendy have been talk of the tight-knit town owing to their 20-year age gap. Attention they duly lap up, not least with 3 ex-partners apiece dotted around the pub.
Better be you first.
Wendy warns Elliot. Justin wearily perches in the corner as Wendy sits on Elliot's lap. She rarely holds back around Justin.
Where the bloody hell's he going later, though?
Elliot impatiently asks.
Just leave him to it.
Wendy lightly bites Elliot's neck after feeling multiple pairs of eyes beaming their way from other tables.
It's fine.
An hour of boredom does it. Justin approaches Dion, the grisly, paint-covered geezer smashing balls in alone in preparation for next week's Division 4 relegation decider.
I'll give you a game.
Huh. 5 minimum, boy.
Justin's eyes light up. He whacks his crinkled £10 refereeing profit on the table's cushion.
Got change?
Dion flitters his bushy eyebrows, grins and ejects the pool balls, aiming to not only win, but exhibit his superiority in no uncertain terms. He goes full bandit style, whacking in 3 balls from the break and clearing up the first 5 of his colours. Excess screw knocks the white back and inadvertently doubles the black in, leaving Justin as winner by default. Despite Dion begging for a double down rematch in hope of clawing back his beer money, Justin's having none of it. Void of grandiose self-belief, he does what most gamblers can only dream of, walk away while ahead. After accepting the mortification and pub-wide ribbing, Dion buys Justin a pint of shandy and an XL packet of HP honey roasted peanuts. Justin spots Daffyd and his equally vibrant mates on the other side, lapping up the football to celebrate a cup quarter-final win with Llanrwg FC, where he plays in goal. Catching Justin with his thumbs up snaps Daffyd out of his buoyant stride. He already despises Wendy for restricting her son's life, and expected her to be some kind of prude. Seeing her out with Justin, yet not allowing him to stay for football after school, only solidifies this. At least he now has means to take action for her negligible, cruel parenting, should it ever be called upon. Before Justin can so much as slurp his thoroughly earned pint, it's whisked from his grasp. After an hour of dry humping, the tension proves too tough to bear for Wendy and Elliot. They're off, just as Justin snaps into full pub lad swing.
Taxi's waiting!
Justin sips what he can of the beer before relinquishing hope and following her lead, straight into the front seat. Tipped over the edge by his hangover anxiety the next morning, Daffyd acts on his rage and phones social services on Justin's part, just to register his concerns and timestamp the neglectful day. Having historically believed school bullies were behind Justin's frequent face marks, he now suspects Wendy after witnessing her volatile nature in the flesh. Early summer school football games come thick and fast. On the following Monday, Daffyd is delighted to hand Justin the whistle for another, hopefully providing consolation after his tough weekend. In what is only his second game, Justin has a blinder. Any first match hesitancy is gone, and he dons the pitch with utter conviction, garnering respect from both sets of players and coaches at full time, not least Daffyd, who high-fives him on the way in.
Lad, get on the course, you're ace, I swear.
Thought of nothing else but.
Don't let her stop you. Look, I shouldn't say this, but your mum, she does whatever she wants, Billings. Why don't you try it as well?
Justin nods. Focus builds as he ponders.
30 quid a game to run a Welsh Alliance line. Start now, you could be Welsh Prem Lino in 5 years, maybe sooner.
With hope of saving up money, breaking free from Wendy's dependence finally seems possible.
Imagine that.
I mean it. Be Brammer for the CV as well. Help you get other jobs.
Daffyd takes the ball out of Justin's hand and winks his way.
What if I could move out? Less than a year till it's legal. Few games a week, topped up by a part-time job, and I'm there.
He thinks while trudging away. Justin does not need asking twice. It's a gamble, sure, could make life at home hell on earth, but one worth whatever it takes. Besides, by this point, he couldn't care less if she disowns him, so why not push those buttons and do something for himself while he's at it? They devise an alibi, one Daffyd's used on special occasions in the past, one that could land him the sack. Luckily for him, Wendy's slapdash interest in the school ensures fact-checking is nigh on impossible. Dear Wendy Billings, we have arranged additional classes on Wednesdays and Fridays from 4 to 5 p.m, strictly for our most talented mathematicians. We are delighted to inform you of Justin Billings' inclusion on this select shortlist. Bangor School are acutely aware this could affect working routines, so the school will provide transportation home at no extra cost. Yours sincerely, Daffyd Evans, Bangor School's Head of Mathematics and Physical Education. Justin deliberately passes this on first thing in the morning. Plenty of stewing time for Wendy while he's in school, with nobody for her to burden its heinous corollary with.
Shopping duties will need delegating next few weeks.
Wendy glares his way, powerless to reluctantly forfeit yet another strand of control over her primary narcissistic supply fountain.
See you in a bit.
Wendy grunts, stuffs the letter in her hand, and tosses it in the bin.
Fuck's sake. Confidence booster we don't need. Gotta let him go. No choice in the matter. Teacher will be all over me. Chatting arse in the staff room, giving me a bad name. Can't be having that. It's okay, Wendy. Calm down. He'll fail the other exams, so I'll give him a shot at this one.
Just like that, Justin's gifted aspirations beyond merely surviving his pitiful home life. Finally a chance of chasing a goal of his own. It's a 6-week course held twice a week. Any opening day nerves are swiftly dispelled owing to the warm welcome received on arrival. They dive straight in, analysing videos of fouls, grading them on their severity, and explaining why. Never has an educational environment provided such stimulation as he laps up every word. Over the weeks, Justin makes plenty of friends with fellow students. To prepare for the various social events that spurn from this, he treats himself to some charity shop clothing to up his fashion game. A suit for future cup finals tops the list for next time. If there was any doubt in Justin's mind, Wales' top FIFA-listed referee guest appearance solidifies his desire to pursue this as a career. Hearing about his local hero's humble beginnings, being bullied at school for his weight, homeless for a year at the age of 16, to now refereeing Champions League and international games, sends a tingle through his spine. By week 6, the day of their exam, Justin has fully memorised the laws of the game. As such, he nails the exam with a 95% mark. Oblivious to the thundering rain dogging his wearisome walk home, Justin powers ahead, clearing the hill in record time. Unsurprisingly, Wendy is indifferent.
Look at her. Wouldn't know joy if it smacked her in the face. She's not getting anywhere near this. No way. I won't let her. Not again.
An ordinarily diligent Wendy fails to notice Justin forgetting his hearing aid for school the next day. What a result. But not quite as tasty as what awaits in the school changing rooms. An official blue Premier League referees kit, and note expressing how proud Daffyd is of Justin. A dapper shirt adds at least 20% to a referee's performance, sticking Justin in good stead ahead of his imminent Welsh Alliance debut. In further boundary testing style, Justin swerves an instant return home from school in favour of a haircut, a first without Wendy, whose presence won't be missed by anyone. Barbers around town shudder at her hawk-eyed sight, a true antagonist of the hairdressing community, chronically bursting to berate the slightest swerve from her rigid instructions. Today is the day he finally gets a grade 1 back and sides. Got to look smart on the pitch. It's all about respect. While desperate to have a tribal pattern carved into the back, not even his newfound rebellion can quite justify it.
Maybe next time? Gotta build up that shock value after all.
So far, making himself harder to control has had the desired effect, with Wendy opting for semi-regular silent treatment as punishment. This suits Justin down to the ground. In a juicy bonus, her dwindling hypervigilance has paved way for an occasional extra FIFA session. This hasn't paralysed her dogged pursuit of benefits, which, as Justin sneaks in, itching to unveil his new bad boy haircut, she is epically engaged in. Owing to Justin's promising counselling progress, he has been summoned for a disability benefit reassessment. An ashtray brimming with fag ends signals Wendy's 4th hour on the phone, as she paces around in pyjamas with tied-up hair and a scowling, makeupless face.
Is this some kind of sick joke? He can't even get a bus by himself. I see how it is. Cut a vulnerable family adrift without even a flying fuck given, dropped into an unfathomable poverty. Your boss better nearly be back from Costa.
Her eyes widen in horror at the haircut, momentarily steering her focus off the call. Justin smirks, walks out towards the electric box, and lifts off the lid just as Wendy eventually regains her composure.
Fucking reassessment. Should see the chaos, sheer terror he's inflicting on the household of late. Because when it's put into words, a proper report, you're going to look like a prat. Fucking right, I'm not paying. Nearly $1,000 they are, not a sound investment on your resources.
Justin pulls the electric switch, consigning the house to temporary darkness, and most importantly, cutting off Wendy's call. An hour and a half of tortuous hold music, all for nothing. While the stiff jab stings, it's easily rideable, not least with the leverage now at play. Aiming to exacerbate the bruise before their reassessment in 2 days' time, he heads straight upstairs and presses on the early stage black eye. This does mean a shiner will be present for his first game, an assistant refereeing appointment at Bethesda straight after the reassessment. Chapter 6. On the brink of breakdown due to his haunting home life, Justin summons Daffyd for a private chat to discuss options. Daffyd himself fled violent parents, first staying at his grandparents' house for a week, aged 13, before being moved into care on account of their frail age. Since then, he has vowed never to become your typical gaslighter, one of the enabler pricks who dismissed his concerns for years and left him to rot in the naughty corner. While Daffyd urges Justin to try and stick it out, just until he turns 16, when he can access accommodation, they harbour a plan B in case things grow untenable. Daffyd will briefly host Justin while they explore care options, whether school give him permission or not. Before parting ways, they go to town on Justin's face, which is covered in foundation applied by Wendy that morning to hide the bruise. With that wiped off, Daffyd takes multiple pictures of Justin's black eye as evidence. Bolstered by the security of this escape plan, Justin remains serene as they pull up for the reassessment. Furious at the dire healing rate of Justin's bruise, Wendy barely notices him leaving the passenger side window open. His football kit sits on the seat, ready to swoop and dart off with after the appointment. So they head yet to another generic office, a feature of Justin's childhood. Sonia awaits, a PIPS assessor, longing to unlock meaning beyond this government-restricted, well-paid job that consumes her life.
How does it feel when you take public transport alone?
Sonia asks.
It was made clear on the phone. He can't. Exclusively relies on lifts.
Justin?
You should know what autism entails. He struggles to express himself, meaning some of the answers will be from me.
Justin, how do you feel when taking a trip somewhere new alone? Somewhere you've never been?
Sneaky little traps, these repetitious questions. We know what you're doing.
Fine, when I'm allowed to.
Do you get along with people at school? Are you nervous when meeting new people?
Improved dramatically in that regard. No problems there.
4 tear-ups this month would say otherwise. Not the time to get ahead of yourself. This is official. Could get us trouble.
Justin scowls and grits his teeth.
We have to be as accurate and truthful as rationally possible.
Trying to be.
Justin, how do you feel about the future? The thought of independence, moving out one day, going to university. Does any of that particularly worry you?
Not in the slightest, counting down the days.
Good luck with that one. Can't even put on his own bedding.
Wendy, let the lad speak. He clearly can, and he doesn't need to be spoken for. This is about him and how he feels.
We shouldn't even be here.
Do you see what I'm up against? Antidepressants should be made available as a priority.
I'm alright, I've been used for a nonsense diagnosis for financial fucking gain. I say we shouldn't be here, but I'm glad we are. And I haven't been fighting.
You're a liar! Full of fucking fibs! How dare you? Do you know what you're doing to us? Do you?
There you go.
Justin points at the mark on his face.
Need I explain?
Sonia subtly gawps.
I don't know what he's playing at. I do apologise.
These are serious allegations.
I know. Do what you want with it. I'll go to care better than living with her. Anything would be. I'm not scared. I want something done. There are people out there who need pips that starve to death when it gets cut from them. Because of cunts like us.
Justin jumps out of his seat.
I won't be your disability puppet anymore. Fuck you and everything you stand for. We shouldn't be here.
He bursts out crying as he runs out. Justin grabs his sports bag from the car's open window, throws it over his back and doggedly storms ahead, leaving a shrieking Wendy in his wake before disappearing up a narrow mountain path. To avoid capture, he powers through lopsided fields, rural back roads and riverside trails, until concluding the 4 surplus miles of trekking cannot be handled, not if he wants to be fresh for the game. A rare payphone in Talibont, not battered by vandals, enables Justin to phone Daffyd, whose number he had luckily scribbled down, for a lift. Daffyd is playing in the game, and while this makes him late for warm-ups, he dashes over in a heartbeat. Fortuitously for them, Wendy has pissed off down the pub to drown her sorrows and plan the next move, gifting Justin time to swing by and swipe his Xbox and clothes. During a peaceful mountainous drive back to Daffyd's, uncertainty starts creeping in, followed by the first minor doubts. However, he fights his gut feeling to return home in favour of staying at Daffyd's over the weekend. Out of legal obligation, Daffyd informs Wendy of Justin's whereabouts. To their astonishment, she offers nothing in form of resistance, not a word, before blocking Daffyd on all social media fronts. While undoubtedly making Justin's life easier, the lack of fight secretly sinks him inside.
What an object I was. And with pips bound to be cut or scrapped, a worthless one at that. She was done with me. Got out at just the right time.
By Monday, Wendy officially forfeits custody of Justin, who will now be taken into care. Chapter 7. A true stalwart of Porthagraig care home, Owen Jones has seen it all. Slit wrists, hunger strikes, staff walkouts that left him and 10 other troubled kids with free rein, you name it. While understandably subject to the occasional spike of depression, he has remained stoic throughout his stint in the system. However, Darcy Quinney, a former Porthagraig resident herself, thoroughly tested his resolution through systematic, sadistic bullying. Despite her departure months ago, the trauma looms large on Owen, not least in the mornings when the brunt of her fun would occur. As is customary until early noon, Owen hopelessly curls up in bed, on top of the covers, partly flattening his spiked mohawk hair. While North Wales is treated to a rare scorching Easter morning, his bodge job curtains remain shut. Well, as shut as they allow, as sun pokes through the gap onto his face. An issue that affects his sleep, one the care home seemed dead against sorting. Until recently, his room was littered in colour, comic strips and nihilistic drawings, mirroring his post-bullying anguish. It now sits bland and bare, barring a mere A4-sized Tony Hawk poster. Darcy's constant ridicule, snarling insults and scoffing at his passions upon her daily unwelcome visit sapped the joy from his sails. Rowdy chuckling bellows from outside, where a group of alcoholics, led by Grant, party on the pavement, having blown a hefty chunk of their dole on speed and 8% KA cider. A loud slam of the front door jolts Owen into gear. It's time to get moving. Any chance of further relaxation has long gone. He grabs his skateboard and lethargically heads downstairs. Sherman, the place's overweight, stressed-out manager, is showing Harold, an unassuming, dimwit new employee, the ropes. This morning's lesson is on locking the shoddy back door. Sherman carefully twists the key in the lock.
Got it! Got it!
Harold brashly claims before snatching the key. Despite his best efforts, he roughly jams it in the lock before grunting, having scuppered his 5th attempt.
Mick should have fixed this donkeys ago.
I can do it! Don't worry!
Well, I've got to see you do it before I leave you here overnight.
Just gotta loosen the joints. First week nerves and all.
Despite holding first-class honours in child psychology, it's taken him a year to find work owing to his erratic, nerve-ridden interviews. Yet poor old Harold can't seem to translate his enthusiasm, fear of failing probation, and the potential subsequent poverty into success, as he once again fails to unlock the door. Sherman scowls and trudges off, dismally uninspired by his flailing new recruit. Pathetic low pay and a skimpy talent pool sees them regularly turn over staff, leaving Sherman with scant patience for training. Quietly stood behind them the entire time, Owen gives Sherman a shock once she turns around.
All right there, Rose. Back on the ollies?
Oh, yeah?
Owen suggests. Keen to salvage a 10-minute lunch break, Sherman wastes no time in walking on.
Yeah, things are getting hairy. A bit desperate, if I'm honest. I've never felt so down. And fucking counselling still haven't got back to me. It's been months now.
Oh, you know what they're like. Not much we can do but wait, I'm afraid.
Despite clinging onto a renowned heart of gold for the first 2 of 3 decades in the job, being stretched for so long has stripped Sherman of patience for chats, a job that's now strictly delegated to new recruits. Known as a barbarian pranker and half-pipe fiend, Owen is a former regular down at the skate park. These days, following the bullying, he daren't show his face. Paranoia that everyone's laughing at him, when they seldom are, stops him venturing past the care home's car park. This comes at the expense of smooth tarmac, of which this gravelly, cracked surface is short of. Sporting a thick, fresh shining black eye, Grant whistles over. Bit of drinking entertainment for Shane and Llewellyn is in order.
Bet you can't grind this wall.
Oh, yeah?
You're shit.
Owen squares over.
5 fags says I can.
Whatever.
And I want one of them now, whether I make it or not.
Grant rolls his eyes and hands Owen a fag, which Llewellyn lights. To give himself every chance, Owen smothers the wall ledge in wax before jogging off. Ring rust could come into play here, but 5 fags proved quite the dangling carrot to skew any nerves. So he psychs himself up and darts towards the wall ledge, surprising even himself in nailing the grind. However, the same can't be said for the landing. Despite nearly flopping off to the right, he keeps his footing and roars as Llewellyn and Shane torment their primary drinking buddy.
Get your Pall Malls out for the lads.
Llewellyn Tick Jones, one of Grant's fellow High Street loiterers, says.
Don't bother asking for mine. 3 bar a pop if you dare.
Shane, the group's most pissed member, adds. A grubby hatchback pulls up. It's Jensen Hayes, supplier to many of the area's small bag drug runners, not least Darcy, who's in the passenger seat, itching to regain control of Porther Graig. Grant resentfully hands Owen the fags, leaving only 2 for himself all day, nowhere near enough to deal with the eerie sight of Darcy, who grins his way and winks.
Taking more of that MXE or what?
Let's go, boys.
Jensen's right fucking there, man. Not even a 5-back. No way he's ticking me. Won't get a better chance all year.
We're fucking going now.
Dingler, man. Sound here, no cops or nothing. Finally finds somewhere Brahma, and he fucks it off. Don't come round often, sesh spots like that. Boss man pulling up in the whip.
Owen gazes back, and any buzz from his gnarly trick fades into obscurity, as Darcy deviously struts her way inside with 2 suitcases.
Oh well, had a few peaceful months at least.
Dizzy from shock, Owen lowers himself onto the wall and vacantly takes a seat. Once back to his senses, he erupts and boots his skateboard. Not like it'll be needed for a while, not with the paralysing threat of Darcy's punishment for exhibiting counterculture in her house. Once again, timing a fleeting visit for Wendy's pub time, Justin sneaks back for the rest of his belongings. Porther Graig have agreed to take him in, which is perfect. Had they not had space, it could have been Anglesey or Conway. This way, he is far closer to school and civilization, leaving a fighting chance of salvaging some sort of social life. After digging FIFA out from underneath the floorboard, he tosses the board aside. An eerie car ride ensues. It all seems real now. But deep down, beyond the mania, a sense of pride takes over. Colossal self-worth to have stood up for himself, for what may be the first time, finally shot of his mother who, while struggling to admit it, he despises for not just clipping his wings, but shearing them down to the bone. A master manipulator he will now be without, if the mental coercion doesn't drag him onto other abusers' radars, that is. While willing to temporarily house Justin, childminding duties got right in the way of Daffyd's weekend boozing and womanising. But giving someone who's been through it a chance, a glimmer of light and empowerment that he never got, will live long in the memory. Justin takes a good look at the greyscale, green fence building as they pull up. This is far from what he pictured, but disappointment aside, he has no choice but to summon his composure. He can't seem scared, not as the residents see him for the first time. First impressions are paramount to survival.
You're going to be fine, mate. Fresh start now. Become the man you want. Nothing's stopping you.
Justin nods, slaps Daffyd's outstretched hand, grabs the first box, and storms out of the car. As planned, the first hall harbours his Xbox and games. Daffyd's promised to do all the lifting bar this first round, while Justin settles down for a well-deserved game on Ultimate Team. An instant whiff of dull bleach, that of a poorly sanitised 60s community hospital, greets Justin on entry and slows his stride. Owen joins 5 other residents in a rare venture downstairs, where he is sketching a wilted cartoon alcoholic policeman. 2 burly brutes play pool on an unkempt trashy table. Owen nods at Justin, who nods back, recognising Owen for his formerly lauded Bangor Mountain graffiti tags.
Justin, been hearing top things about you. I'm Sherman. So it's simple enough round here, David will tell you. At bare minimum, we'll help you to a certain extent, because we have to. And if you help us back, steer that beat clear of trouble, we'll give you everything we have at our disposal.
I won't be bothering you, don't worry.
They seem nice, the other kids.
Sherman nods against all instinct.
Cracking bunch at present. Mr. Billings here should fit like a glove.
Loud snorting thunders from the bathroom, from none other than Darcy clearing her nose after a night on the Calvin Klein. Cocaine and ketamine mixed. Darcy swaggers out of the bathroom, wipes her snotty nose on her sleeve, and deviously looks Justin up and down. To his dismay, she slams the door of the room next to his. What Justin finds inside is, to his awe, actually an upgrade on his old room. No more clipping his head on the roof, with the room's height almost double his size. That and a wider TV by 8 inches ensures the cracked walls and scabby plastering can be forgiven. While allowed to eat upstairs, Justin opts for a communal dinner. However, this isn't a popular choice among residents. Only Neil joins him, who is forced to eat downstairs due to anorexia and his subsequent tendency to avoid food at all costs. Harold is supervising, with Sherman keen to test his resolve when dealing with their most complex resident. Despite showing more patience than anyone in Neil's 2 years at the home, it's to no avail. Neil breaks out in tears. With his life at risk should he not eat, he reluctantly gives Harold the nod. It's time for intervention.
No, I can't eat it, you know I can't. I can't eat it, you know I can't.
Neil repeatedly yells as they lightly pick him up by the shoulders and carry him into a separate room, where he will be force-fed through tubes. Those with Neil's issues would usually be cared for in hospital. However, a lack of beds burdens the unprepared care system, with duties beyond their experience and pay grade once again. Unequivocally put off his food, Justin drags the plate of dry fish fingers, oven chips and sweet corn upstairs to process the trauma of Neil's petrified face. Showing his naivety, Justin forgets to lock the door, that remains open while wedged in the rough carpet. Darcy spots her chance. Time for a spot of networking. She knocks before squaring in without permission. Justin jolts upright on his bed. While undoubtedly finding her attractive, Darcy's wicked, terrifyingly dark energy usurps any desire to have a girl finally burst into his room.
Chill, only showing my face.
Darcy holds out her hand, which Justin shakes.
Darcy, come to the next room.
Justin.
Darcy sits on the edge of the bed with her menacing eyes firmly glued to the potential prey.
So, what's a beady squirm like you here for then, Justin?
Didn't do nothing.
Rarely do goody two-shoes wind up here.
Honestly, I chose to get away from Mum and come here.
Darcy nods and briefly looks away in shock. That's a new one. Most are dragged here kicking and screaming. Other than her, of course, the place's heiress and temporary string puller.
What are you here for?
Bit personal that, as we've only just met.
Oh yeah, true. Sorry.
Darcy scoffs, just the sort of gimp she can wrap around her pinky. Never one to rest for long, she gets up and looks around the room, scouring for information to one day use against him. A Wilfred Zaha poster induces a bitter grimace.
Palace?
Through and through.
Darcy shakes her head and sifts through his boxes.
Wouldn't be squawking about that. Everton House, this. Bangin'.
Darcy erupts as she finds Justin's pile of games.
You're a gamer.
Fucking right, boy.
Darcy glares his way.
Birds can be too, you know.
Oh yeah, I didn't say they couldn't.
New fee for the lot. Just shot you straight up the hierarchy.
A door fee for me.
Darcy gets up with the FIFA case in hand.
Well, you're the only one here with it.
She lightly taps Justin's head with the case.
Be seeing you around, mate. Pleasure to meet you.
Content with the salvage, she struts out.
Darcy, my game.
Darcy stops, glances at the case, and chuckles.
Course, my bad.
She roughly drops it on a surface and flicks over a fag.
Housewarming, Prezi.
Cheers.
Darcy winks and leaves, leaving the door wide open for her to come and go as she pleases. Justin glances down at the fag, eminently tempted to suck it into his virgin lungs. His mother's second-hand smoke has long since ingrained a subconscious minor addiction. With football fitness to consider, he leaves it be. For now.
Give it 2 hours, and if the burn remains, it'll need extinguishing.
Chapter 8. Despite growing up in a traditional upper-class Kent family, Lionel Sawyer never asked for much as a child. His stockbroker father, Marco, was rarely at home owing to his London-based job. Luckily, his mother Tina ran the local shop. Company came at the expense of joining her there, where his relentless work ethic and taste for success eventually developed. Once succumbing to mental health issues owing to his 50-plus hour job and 2-hour daily round trip, Marco began feeling bitter towards Lionel. Clinical depression led to both an enforced early retirement at 50 and a looming threat of Lionel surpassing Marco's achievements, which kicked off their permanent rift. This only intensified as Lionel made good of his vow to succeed by thriving at university before becoming a highly respected dentist. While Lionel has refrained from lumping the same pressure on his own children, the laziness and lack of conformity in Blake inwardly repulses him, never more so as he invades Blake's room and sets eyes on the crusty pot noodle packets, energy drink cans, and scrunched tissue littering the floor and surfaces.
Jesus, Blake!
Blake glances over and scoffs, before quickly returning to the epic Call of Duty Ground War, where he tops the leaderboard.
Been worse.
The kids are going to be late.
Blake groans. He usually walks them to school. Most days anyway, other than those spent chuffing morning fags in factory gardens.
No exams this morning. Not in till 1.
And you're telling us this now?
Thought Mum had the timetable memorised.
Great. Thanks again, Blake. What would we do without you?
Lionel scampers outside, throwing on his denim jacket while walking. Caught unaware, Vivian stumps out her garden table morning fag, just escaping detection. While she quit for 6 years, sneaky balcony roll-ups after a few drinks have seen her nicotine appetite come flying back.
Come on, guys, we're going to be late.
Hugo, Sarah and Harrison halt their customary preschool football game and rush to the car. Lionel blows a kiss at Vivian before shooting off.
Good luck.
Taking the kids to school has made Lionel 20 minutes late for work. By the time he rushes in, Ms. Jack and Glendis, 2 of today's elderly clients, restlessly await in the waiting room.
Lionel Sawyer, late on his last day.
India, the quirky receptionist, says,
Lucky I rocked up at all.
Snotty 1-star TripAdvisor reviews await.
Yeah, from you and the toy boy, maybe.
India's face drops. Her affair with a 20-year-old Tinder pull was firmly under wraps until now. No doubt Ms. Jack, a notorious Bangor gossip merchant, will be cashing in on her golden social nugget the second she leaves.
Ms. Jack, come with me if you will.
Subject all the dates to such tardy punctuality?
Ms. Jack asks.
If they're an 8 out of 10.
Owing to his self-induced backlog, one with a forfeited lunch break to boot, Indeterminable doesn't do his last shift's drag justice. But after 9 tough months working below the pay grade, his experience should garner. It's finally time to come good.
See you in a bit, Squires. Time to realise my potential.
Vivian's been chopping carrots, onion and tomato for hours. A day off and an extra lunchtime Valium has seen her reduced to a slug's pace. She had hoped it would spriten her up and numb the pain of North Wales isolation. All they've done is trap her in a bitter sense of urgency while stripped of any motor skills to act on it. It's rare to have an entire day to herself. Sarah is often off sick due to health issues, namely those caused by her weakened chest. The highlight was a spacey bath with 3 different Himalayan salts, mostly drowned out by Blake's trap tunes blaring through the wall. Panic sets in as Lionel pulls up outside. A 20-metre walk from car to house gives her just enough time to bin the empty Valium strip and rinse her wineglass before he joyously bursts in.
Hawker's shining star, just who I wanted to see on this momentous night.
Lionel grabs Vivian's waist and kisses her on the cheek from behind as she chops onion.
Cracking last day.
Spiffing. Multiple offers for a tear-up on the lash, all firmly declined.
I'd have been a hoot.
Not with that miserable lot. I told them, nah, you're all right. I'm off home for a bit of Vivian Sawyer's famous spag bowl. See you in a bit, lads. Doubt they truly fancied it, all for show.
Vivian's lip trembles.
Thought you'd be thrilled.
I am.
This is huge. Possibilities are endless. Time off when I want, mad holidays with the kids, and no more capped salary. We've made it, Viv.
You know I'm happy for you.
Not entirely sold?
Of course I am. But why here, Lionel?
Hang on a minute.
All the way out in North fucking Wales.
You said it would suit the kids. Nice little escape, stone's throw away from beautiful mountain walks.
Had to say something positive. Keep the old sanity in check. Not like I'd ever have a say.
It's early days, Viv.
Yet Blake's already off the rails.
Lionel grimaces.
Well, it's not like either of us had family to stick around for.
Maybe not blood, but we had friends, me and Blake.
Vivian rubs her face and tops up her wine.
All well and good for the little ones young enough to start again, but Blake... Fuck's sake, during his GCSEs, just as he was turning a corner, finally out of the naughty class. Who knows what path he'll take? I knew this would mess him up.
Darling, we're here now. Simply too late to look back.
I know.
If they were proper friends, those who give a flying metric fuck, then they'd be here, visiting, making sure you and Blake are still alive.
Vivian wipes a tear from her eye and chugs the rest of her wine. Fleeced from the hairy embrace, Lionel shuts down, contributing to a rare, eerie, quiet dinner. One without Blake, who having only filled in 10% of his maths GCSE exam, is out celebrating, getting trolleyed on MDMA at Jensen Hayes' trap house. Opting for some deep reading, Vivian takes The Obsession outside as Hugo, Sarah and Harrison play basketball, undeterred by the awkward dinner and full stomachs. They've rarely argued over the past few years. Vivian keeps most issues buttoned up, shielding Lionel from the drama. It's simpler that way, right up until it all implodes, like today. While ordinarily a dessert health freak, Lionel splurged on a deluxe chocolate cheesecake.
On the smart, are we?
You know me.
Still peckish?
Vivian shrugs as Lionel looks down in shame.
Was bang out of order earlier. My bad.
Spot on though, aren't you? Too late for second thoughts.
In the immediate future, I wouldn't want us staying here, not if it will sink you back into depression.
But Lionel, the new shop.
I know. But if it takes off, who knows? I mean, look, I can't move away at the moment. But what if I got you a little cottage, somewhere pretty like Aylesford or even Wye, right in the thick of nature, as Kent Downs as it gets?
Vivian grins as her lifelong dream flitters in front of her eyes.
It would make a difference. Just get so lonely here.
Hey, we'll sort it. Year's time from now, if all goes well, you can finally retire.
Lionel rubs Vivian's back.
Back and forth from the cottage for as long and as often as you need. Blake could even stay there full time.
Really?
Yeah, start college, steer clear of trouble, sort himself right out, and 4-5 years from now, I'll sell up and we'll be right there with him.
Vivian gazes into Lionel's manic eyes before resting her head on his shoulder as he kisses her forehead. He gets up and cups his mouth, cutting short the sweet moment far swifter than Vivian would have liked.
This is a stadium announcement. Would all athletes on the court make their way inside for half-time nourishment?
Hugo, Harrison and Sarah cheer and scuttle inside. Chapter 10. In further confirmation of Darcy's meteoric rise, business booms on her drug line for the next few months. She's cornered the hippie, scaffolding and rave customer demographic, who look no further for 0.7 gram bags for 90 quid before tearing up Peep nightclub. Such is the unwavering demand that a new runner or two will soon be essential. Yet to scout a suitable candidate, Jensen's recruitment game has been shoddily slacking. Blake's adjustment to the dealing life has been rocky. While his whinging level has curtailed, both Darcy and Jensen keep a beady eye on his overall performance. While Blake's fearless in his job, formidable and steely enough to deter drug thieves as of yet, a passive-aggressive streak niggles Jensen. But this could well be ironed out after another 3 months of moulding. Despite getting on the gear at parties, Blake is yet to submit to temptation that overcomes many a runner. Daily dabbling into his personal stash has been entirely avoided. Fear of Darcy just about makes sure of that. At worst, his passive aggression is limited to walking slightly slower to a drop should he feel slighted. However, Darcy isn't satisfied. She worries this devious streak could cost her customers and is keen to prove a point. Nip this slacking in the bud before it bites her pocket and reputation. En route to picking up another ounce, she's deliberately steered Blake and Justin in Porther Craig's direction, where she claims to need her scales. None other than Owen is outside. Unluckily for him, there is no one she would rather make an example of. A decision has long been made that whoever she sees first is getting it. Got to show the boys who's boss. Firing herself up for show, she stampedes over with clenched fists and fierce bulging eyes to Owen's dormant position, where he's lying on the wall after a knackering skate.
What have you been saying about me?
Fuck all.
Wrong answer.
Darcy slams Owen's skateboard into the wall, shattering it in two. Owen gets up and longingly looks at Blake, who turns away and spits on the floor.
Gonna deck me, are you? Big man Owen. Come on then.
Owen tightens his arms, grunts, and sits back down.
Thought so. Little poof boy.
I'm not a puff.
Darcy menacingly edges closer.
You just don't know it yet. But I do. And I plan on treating you like one for as long as I can. Remember who you're chatting to.
Blake glances back at Owen, shocked to the core and certainly towed into line. While he wants to help, he daren't keep Darcy waiting as she storms inside to wipe her muddy shoe on Owen's bedsheet. Chapter 9. Justin's first fag sank down like a dream. Another was sought out immediately after, much to Darcy's joy, who knows she's got her claws into a new toy. Wendy smoking in the car and house other than spliffs undoubtedly got him somewhat addicted. While living with her was a perpetual wind-up, he couldn't contribute the overwhelming anger to anything at times, but now he knows. It takes 4 goes to spark the deliberately shoddy lighter gifted by Darcy. After a hefty first toke, he chokes on the smoke as an unknown number rings the phone handed over by Daffyd before coming into care. It's Wendy.
Now you listen here, and you listen good. Nerve on you using that word. After what you've put me through, how you've made me look.
How did you get this number?
Legally entitled, mate.
Fuck off, just fuck off.
I want paying back for my time investment that I'll never, ever get back.
Don't have money, do I?
Well, when you turn 16 you will.
What?
Now, you seem to get a letter asking you if you want your pip still paying to me.
Doubt it'll be me dealing with that.
And you're gonna say no. I'm not ready to deal with finances. Keep it Mother Wendy's way.
We'll see about that one.
Don't you be telling anyone I called, because if you don't help me out, it'll be the last time.
Good luck to you, Wendy.
Justin hangs up and storms off for a crosstown power walk, fueled by the nicotine high to compensate for his poor day of eating.
It's alright, Billings. Karma will get her. No more fancy houses on the state. Benefit funded nights out. Her cash cow's gone. And he ain't ever coming back.
Jensen eagerly watches Justin furiously surge past his clunky hatchback car, awkwardly toking on his fag. Vulnerable adolescents are often targeted for dealing given their impressionable age and malleability. Nowhere is more lined with eligible candidates than Porther Craig. Jensen's inside recruiter, Darcy, jumps into the passenger seat while loudly chewing gum.
The Airwaves ambassador herself.
Jensen says,
Need them after that prison-grade grub.
Jensen takes a pitiful look at the dull entrance.
Grim to be back?
Nah, it's sound. Still in charge.
Who's the new lad?
Jensen asks as they drive past Justin.
Fucking dweeb. Right, little mug. Gonna have some fun with that one.
Jensen grimaces. He detests bullies.
What?
Don't be gammy, Darcy.
Fuck off.
Probably going through hell.
Chose to be in care, that one.
Exactly. No one does that for fuck all. Invite him over later. Chance to let his hair down.
Darcy sarcastically nods with a wry smirk as they pull up to a deathly quiet stretch of pebbly beach overlooking Anglesey that's accessible by car. An all-time favourite of Darcy's, the location of rare jocular times with her mother before she gave up on parenting when Darcy was 5. They get out and lie on the bonnet as Darcy lights a 2-gram spliff.
Fucking heard about Grant?
Darcy chuckles and revels in the delight of her 10th knockdown of the year.
Can't have you losing it out there, sparking cunts out.
What do you expect me to do?
They're going to target you though, and every time you react, we lose a customer.
Sharpest shot you've got, mate.
Spot on. Can't argue with that. But I'm taking you off the streets.
Better fucking well, Haddon.
Nah, not like that. You're not sacked. But we need those brains put to good use. So I'm bumping you up.
Darcy's eyes light up. While fiercely confident in her dealing abilities, not even her grandiosity quite envisaged a management role this early in her career.
Got a runner who'll work under you.
Who?
Blake, new lad on the scene.
Blake Bolton. Fuck's sake. Flabby little ring piece, that's all you've got?
He's green, fair enough, but there's potential there that you're in charge of unlocking.
Darcy ponders and grins.
You'll need another one, maybe a few. Still looking for them.
Darcy flitters her eyes and leans her elbow on the bonnet.
And you took me all the way out here, just to tell me that?
Jensen glares through Darcy.
You're 15, Darcy!
He chucks a spliff in the sea for crabs to devour. Blake squares through the bustling Greyscale High Street, having skipped a post-school 1st to 21 football match for the first time this year. To aid integration into Jensen's network, he has been invited along to the party tonight. Problem is, he is short of suitable footwear. Lionel's long since cut off his allowance for various domestic misdemeanours in hope it pushes Blake into work for both Christmas and birthday. He got Nike Phantom football boots, in turn missing out on new trainers beyond his black and white Fila high tops. So, JD it is. Darcy reckons it's piss easy, so he sneaks in, takes a blatant look left and right, and powers towards the Air Jordans. What he hasn't bargained for, that Darcy deliberately withheld, is that only single shoes are on display. Having come this far, he isn't leaving empty-handed. With the sole on-floor staff member facing away, he grabs a red and white right shoe and a grey, black and white left shoe. He stuffs them in his bag and darts out.
Don't matter if the shoes are odd, birds love that shit. Bloke of conviction, trendsetter and rebel, all in one.
5 hours into an escapism-seeking online FIFA session, where he has won 17 of 20 games, Justin is finally starting to calm down. Guilt and the natural inclination to please your parent, a fact only further ingrained in victims of coercive abuse, had Justin considering letting Wendy keep his disability benefits. But after years of suffering, pointless appointments, constant slandering to family friends, who then treat him differently for this supposed disability, it's his time to benefit.
Even if it's just for a few months, enough time to get settled at 16, save up some wages before fucking it all off for good.
Just as Justin's through on goal, threatening to make it 5-0, Darcy bursts in and blocks the screen, bursting him out of his blissful dissociation.
You're coming with me later.
Am I, yeah?
Fat sesh down the road.
Darcy slowly peels the controller from Justin's submissive grasp.
You are personally invited.
Really? Me?
Yes, you.
Darcy bitterly remarks while quitting the FIFA game as punishment for having to repeat herself.
I was winning.
Well, we need pre-drinks. And you are going to get us some.
Don't know how that'll work.
Piece of piss. You stand outside, wait for an almighty drip to pass by. Drillers are the best. You know, proper baggage style. Then give them a couple of quid to go in.
Can't you? New to the game, me. Gab's not quite up to the job.
Engrained toenail, mate. Gotta watch the step count.
Darcy lies down on his bed.
I'll polish the odd win percentage while you're at it.
Such is Justin's dismay at his day's work's inevitable tarnishing that he forgets to ask Darcy for money, leaving a mere £10 booze budget. Having only drank in pubs, he has no idea when it comes to shop booze prices. Far too embarrassed to turn back, he perseveres to the town centre and hovers by subway. While plenty of eligible daytime drinkers stumble past, he can't bring himself to stop any for a grisly word. He first pops at 2 middle-aged women, dolled up for a night at Bellevue, who ignore Justin without looking his way. After 20 sketchy minutes, Ellis wobbles past with a loitering drag to his step, an oversized Thrasher hoodie drooped over his torso, and a vacant, glowing half-smirk only a wake-up spliff can produce. Justin marches over. He's the one.
Would you get served for me, please?
Justin asks while brandishing the tenner in full view. Ellis smirks. Just the ticket to an evening of Strongbow he was looking for.
£5.
4.
Ellis scowls and snatches the tenner.
What you having, boss?
Oh, dunno. Something cheap.
Ellis rolls his eyes.
Uni Gardens, 10 minutes.
Which is where Justin duly waits, only for Ellis to vanish into thin air, leaving his client prancing around for the thick side of an hour. It takes this long for reality to hit home that he's been shafted for beer money in true amateur fashion. What will he tell Darcy? First task, and he's let her down. Well, no time for speech preparation, as she rings for the 4th time in 20 minutes. This time, he is sure to answer.
Fucking parched here, mate.
Darcy bitterly remarks, furious after losing 5 FIFA games by at least 3 goals on the bounce.
Bit of an issue. Scruffy cunt's pissed off with my tenor.
And you didn't better them?
Sorry. Gave her a go.
Gave it a go. Fucking liability, aren't you?
Balls the sup, haven't I?
Well, plenty of drips hanging around. Bound to bump into one soon.
Yeah, great, but you gave me no money.
What? Swear I did.
And that was my last tenner.
Right. Hit Grant Denby up on Facebook. Cheeky prick owes me a favour or two.
Don't have Facebook.
The fuck? Not allowed, were you? Hang tight. Primary Dingler Denby will be with you ASAP.
Hampered by a mid-afternoon DMT trip and Nosbloon session in Bible Gardens, Grant takes an age to meet him. When he finally emerges, lugging 2 crates of stumpy beer with his gammy, heroin needle-ravaged arms, there isn't a shadow of doubt in Justin's mind that it was worth the wait. Now carrying it back is a different deal, and the quarter-of-a-mile trek saps him dry of any vigour. Jensen's already parked, awaiting him upon arrival to help the crates into the car before his twiggy arms give way. They head into the city's rougher echelons, strewn with seagull-ravaged bin bags, broken glass, snapped fences, shaggy, nettle-ridden gardens, and even a street fire. It swelters in a metal crate, fueled by abandoned wooden chairs, egged on by a handful of youths, seeking an upgrade to their flat's non-existent insulation. Justin's never been down here. Nowhere near, in fact. 2 prostitutes gowned by fur coats covering their skimpy outfits wink his way as they pass and pull up.
Right in there, lad.
I'll get a number for you.
Jensen turns back and momentarily stares Justin down.
Been session before?
Just the pub here and there.
Jensen deviously grins and taps him on the shoulder. His 3rd floor flat is rented out exclusively for dealing drugs from, weighing, planning, the lot. While originally strict with comings and goings, Jensen's since relaxed the policy, allowing the place to be occupied 24/7, but only if Darcy or another peddler is present. Keeping a party going skyrockets MDMA and cocaine sales. But as for crack fiends, they're still to be met outside and not allowed anywhere near the place. Given the street's raucous collective attitude, noise complaints seldom come their way. They'll need all that local camaraderie today, as it's already booming upstairs. Blake proudly squares over, carrying his shoe cop in a school bag with a cheesy smile.
Here he is.
Darcy and Justin's faces subtly sink, all of the people Justin didn't want to see. Just the prick who'll show him up, make him look a right prat and subconsciously open the floodgates for others to follow his cutting lead. Not what you want when you're trying to make new friends. Nightmare. Oh well, no school bully is ruining this, his first party.
What you got in there, lad?
Jensen snatches the bag and peeks inside.
Swag, yeah?
Blake buoyantly says. To Darcy and Justin's utter amusement, Blake snatches the bag and throws on the unmatched Air Jordans. Hoping not to alienate his new recruit just yet, Jensen holds in the urge for clinical social scolding. Under the impression he had pulled off a classic maverick move that would see him lauded, induce celebration of his conformity resistance and, ultimately get him laid, Blake looks down at his shoes in chagrin. Justin lags behind as they climb the thin, creaky staircase. While most of the block party's hard, 3 families occupy the 2nd floor flats directly under Jensen's. Another insomnia-ridden episode is in store for them tonight, with thumping techno rippling from the floor above, clearly audible as they lay in bed, dreading their pointless alarm in 7 hours' time. Jensen summoned a mainstream guest list tonight. Mainstream for this house anyway, as most won't stray beyond cocaine, MDMA and vodka. This is to delude Justin and Blake into thinking the place is safe. Darcy too, but she's not the one he's worried about. Nothing will scare that girl off, not while there's money to be made and coke to be devoured. Their arrival spurs a relative downturn in the collective atmosphere. Justin takes this as a sign to gather his nervy bearings and perch down in the corner. Proceedings soon liven up. Most rave on the tattered and torn dark red carpet, stomping their timberlands to the beat with swinging jaws. None looser than Blake's, who, after only 10 minutes, has annihilated his 2nd chunky line of coke. It's only his 3rd time on the stuff, and Jensen's A-grade gear doesn't hold back. While just sober enough to feel mildly self-conscious, his body takes over, lunging itself around to the beat while spilling his beer. Jensen lets it slide, for now. However, mercy won't be forthcoming should Blake get within a metre of the gram bags of cocaine he's whipping up in the kitchen. With Blake taken care of, Darcy brings Justin over a plate of cocaine lines, most of which are bashed up with benzocaine. She's left a pure one in there, on the far left side of the 5, as subconscious Russian roulette for entertainment.
One of these will get you firing.
Oh, not sure about that.
Darcy puts down the plate and sticks her arm around Justin.
Everyone is on it. That's what we're doing tonight. Be weird not to.
Don't want to get addicted to nothing.
Doesn't work like that. Not after one sesh.
No?
Of course not. Just gets you tingling. Up for a right laugh.
Justin looks down at the line.
Fuck it.
Get in there.
Darcy rolls up a £5 note.
Only the smallest.
Justin points at the tiddliest line, the very one Darcy had prayed for.
Noodle dick there.
Darcy passes Justin the note and he hovers over the lines, freezing at the crucial moment.
So?
Darcy snatches the note, gulps a line, then passes it back.
Decent induction, 8 out of 10.
He takes a deep breath and viciously snorts part of the line. Halfway through, he gasps, drops the note and splutters, much to Darcy's cynical amusement.
Can have the rest of that. I'm done.
I'll just leave them there.
Darcy drops 3 fags on Justin's lap and rubs his shoulder.
Gonna need them,
she says while squaring off into the dance floor debauchery. Justin manically gazes around the room while wiping drops of blood off his nose, eventually breaking out a grin as his heart rate throbs. Despite a stinging, mildly leaking hooter, he is bursting for another line, but without a banknote, he will have to wait. Not that he needs one, as his head vigorously bobs, embracing every techno drop and gnarly drum beat, while studying the wild ravers' every move. What felt like an eardrum bursting racket at first, now makes glorious sense.
What a load of legends. Everyone here is sound, even Blake. Just needed a fat line to see it. Whew, can't believe I'm here. Fuck Wendy, fuck the pub and her grotty toy boys. My turn to live. Future's bright and this is only the start. Chance to make up for lost time.
Meanwhile, Blake swaggers over to Shanice, a pretty, dolled-up raver who's double his tender age. Stomping by her side with shoddy rhythm, he irritatingly obstructs her seasoned dancing.
On the swag, yeah?
Shanice sarcastically points to her gurning jaw.
Thought so. It suits you.
Shanice grimaces, chugs some beer, and partly turns away.
What also might suit you...
What?
Oh, was just saying, what also might suit you is giving us your number.
Blake shows Shanice a picture of himself grinning, with 5 bags of cocaine in hand.
Jet fuel service at your disposal 24/7.
You want my number, yeah?
So I can let you know about the Charles.
Don't know it, but it's scribbled on the bath.
Sound. In the tub?
Top panel right on the inside. Might need yanking out.
Okay.
Blake determinedly scuttles off.
Slot straight back in, don't worry.
Shanice adds, delighted at having earned some temporary peace. Blake gets straight to work. Initially delicate in removing the bath's top wooden panel, a lack of progress sees him tear it off, snapping it in half, leaving a bit stuck on, bent, and chock-a-block full of splinters sticking out. Darcy bashes her way through the locked door, obliterating the lock, which flies 2 meters across the room. Not even this distracts Blake, who has the panel shoved in his face, aching to find Shanice's non-existent scribbled numbers.
Rare bear in half, you.
After an intense stare down, she spits her gum out of the window, grabs a stashed bag of cocaine from behind the damp curtain, and snorts some off a rusty key.
It'll go back on.
Darcy scoffs.
Jensen won't be happy.
Yeah, about the door.
Darcy's face drops. This being Jensen's party house, and not some squalid town centre squat, had slipped her frazzled mind.
Gotta stick together. Won't say fuck all if you don't.
Blake adds. Darcy grunts and takes a leak in full view of Blake as he delicately tries to refasten the bath paddle. On the dance floor, Justin has finally ventured forward, pumped into artificial bravado after a 3rd line of cocaine, as he pounds his head to the music with a wild gurn, finding impromptu moves that even the seasoned ravers can't help but admire.
Not bad for your first party, eh?
Fucking right. Hey, Tar for the invite. Can't thank you enough.
Jensen cracks the Peronis open with the end of a table.
Upgrade on that stumpy shite.
Justin smirks, chugs some of the beer, and nods.
Think I'm in there. Think I'm in there with Darcy.
Gonna bang her, are ya?
He fist bumps Jensen.
Worth a shot.
Jensen taps his bottle against Justin's and deliberately heads towards Darcy, where she's halfway through sticking her hand down an old raver's trousers. After bringing him to life with a few rubs, she grabs his hand and leads him out of the room. While Justin rides the dismay and powers on for another couple of hours, a fourth and fifth line sends his fragile mind into overdrive, beckoning a loop of harrowing, violent, intrusive thoughts.
Slag? How can she do that? All over me 1 minute and with someone else the next. Oh, fuck, what's it, a test? Yeah, gotta be. Defo, yeah. Wants me all jealous, scrapping for attention? Well, not today, ain't bowing down to those dirty games.
Falsely adamant that Shanice and Blake are chuckling at his scatty state, Justin's attempted stoicism collapses, and he storms out without saying goodbye. Not an ounce of anxiety remains as he wobbles around the council estate for his first solo nighttime walk. Bored, having looped it several times, he moves on to Ashley Fields, a go-to of many for spliffs and relaxation that he has never taken advantage of. Chemically fooled into thinking it's warm, he lies back on the stone circle's centrepiece, gazing at the stars, as sweat off his back trenches the slate rock. Hours fly by until he somewhat sobers up. This newfound clarity sinks in, as does the reality of his irrational behaviour. Anxiety follows, along with a sour dose of self-loathing. Back to Porthogryg it is, short of fags, to soothe his insatiable itch. This bedroom-bound part of the night freaks him out. Never has he had such an urge to crash, yet such vivid manic thoughts stopping it happening. As dawn sunlight threatens to poke through, he manages 2 hours of light daydreaming, only for Darcy to burst in, reeking of vodka and sweat.
Snowdonian slacker of the year.
Literally just nodded off.
Your weakness, not mine.
Darcy apathetically says while ripping out the Xbox's cable.
Fuck you doing?
Stuck with Blake down at Jensen's all day, ain't I?
Can you bring it back by 4? Wouldn't mind a session after school.
What are you going there for? Nothing sinking. Blinding come down like yours.
I'll get in trouble.
Will you fuck? Don't give a rat's ass, these mugs. Long as you go in once a week or two.
Darcy chucks Justin a fag and heads for the door.
Round to up the road, if you can hack it. Oh, and you're going to need to start buying your own fags. Can't keep carrying you, mate.
Darcy stampedes down the stairs, waking anyone that dares still sleep. Gutted to have mistimed a quiet bowl of Cocoa Pops, Owen grimaces and braces himself, desperate to avoid staring Darcy's way. This doesn't stop her noticing him, and with Sherman munching chocolate hobnobs in the office, she tiptoes over and spits in Owen's bowl, ruining the last of the Cocoa Pops. Never is she one to turn down some incognito bullying. Satisfied with the morning's work, she cackles her way to the door, lugging Justin's Xbox on her shoulder as the wires bulge out of her hoodie pocket. Only then, as his supply is curtailed, does Justin realise he's now addicted to fags. Still somewhat wired given the speed cut into last night's cocaine, his hankering for one only intensifies after demolishing the last of Darcy's out of the window. She never paid him back for the booze, and probably never will, leaving no chance of another crate today. That he can handle, but the nicotine cravings see him instinctively sift through his games pile. Most are worthless, no more than a quid or two if traded in, other than a select few. No way is FIFA or Call of Duty getting the chop, leaving Grand Theft Auto 5 as the only viable option. Hundreds of hours down the drain, an online character and crib many a nerd would commit minor fraud for, all flogged for a packet of baccy. But in the end, it's an easy decision, one made by receptors mercilessly whirling around his spinning head.
You want to be careful with her, Just?
Owen warns while passing Justin on the stairs.
Help me more than anyone else here.
Owen shakes his head and reveals a nasty shoulder burn. Punishment singed in with a hot spoon, all because he wouldn't hand Darcy a free gram of weed. He shrugs and trudges off.
Surely there was more to it. Wouldn't do that for no reason. Jealousy is, incel and a half.
Couldn't get in there, and now hates anyone who tries.
A nervy inspection of the games ends in success, after serious deliberation from the scrawny CEX cashier. £16, what a result. Darcy has Grant immediately sent down to town. However, Justin's distraught to only get 1 pint bottle of Peroni alongside his fags, which, against strict orders, is gold leaf rolling tobacco instead of straights. Justin nods and reaches out for the pouch, which Grant yanks away before swiping a pinch's worth from.
Been getting 3 for $20 off him for years.
While thrilled to own his first pouch, rolling is an issue for Justin, ensuring a bleak, gritty trek to Jensen's, one he powers through to sooner reach competent fag rollers. The burn only intensifies as he loiters outside, unheard due to the flat's blaring house music. Short of phone credit, he hammers the buzzer for 10 arduous minutes, graduating to throwing wall chippings at the window. This eventually does it, but only after one flies in and lands on Blake's lap, disturbing him mid-FIFA game and allowing Darcy to score. Jensen's glad to see him. While most of Justin's nature, those new to this side of life, often never come back, the select few that do often become staunchly loyal to the cause. Top potential soldiers, those green enough to feel indebted for being welcomed into a community, something they may never have experienced before. With all the weighing done for Darcy and Blake's line, most of the donkey work done by Blake, gaming, drinking, bickering, and street corner dashes occupy the day. Sales on Darcy's line have improved dramatically. Her natural leadership skills have seen her flourish in the new role. Owing to her fight with Grant, Jensen mainly has her in charge of cocaine and weed, pitting her up against, on average, less challenging customers. Housebound dealing keeps her out of trouble, with Blake now delegated her former Bangor woodland running duties.
Fuck off!
Blake shouts while rejecting Vivian's 4th phone call today. Jensen opens a beer on the windowsill and hands it to Justin.
Tar. Who's winning?
Darcy flitters a sneering glance back, but quickly returns to the game. While Justin's a useful cog to have around, she secretly regrets leading him on. But that's par for the course. Nothing that she hasn't rode before to get soldiers on board. Justin looks down, confused by the sudden hostility. He sits on the sofa and fails miserably to roll a fag. Under the illusion they were all great friends after last night, sesh reality begins to hit home. All those fake, chemically charged connections whittle away, by as early as the next day. A harsh lesson for the boy, not least when on a searing come-down. Darcy answers Llewellyn's call while continuing to play.
Half, yeah? 45, as it fucking always is. Yeah. Gonna actually turn up this time. Brahma, won't be long.
She puts down the phone, pauses the game, and turns to Blake.
On your way.
Again?
Tickmeister awaits.
6 miles of trekking have his calves already on the verge of cramping.
It's your job. One you're being paid handsomely for, need I remind you.
Blake grabs a half-gram bag of cocaine from a hefty pot stuffed with over 50 in a huff. When recruited by Jensen, his duties weren't made abundantly clear. Running around is far below his original lofty expectations.
Don't want to see you back here for an hour.
What?
Can't have you in and out every second. Take a few with you. Hang around the park. Sure they'll fly out.
Blake grabs 8 bags of cocaine and storms out. Sensing an opportunity to finally utilise his own Xbox after a strenuous morning without, Justin gets up and grabs a controller, psyched for the challenge of overturning Blake's 2-goal deficit.
Not quite yet. Got a job for you first.
Jensen calmly grabs it off Justin.
I ain't a dealer, alright?
Nothing like that. Go and meet Baz down the road. He'll explain.
Justin nervously nods.
Then we can get rat-assed.
Darcy grimaces. Jensen had promised they would cut off supply to her stepdad Paul and cretin mates Baz and Noel. Justin slumps down the street and shudders as his short-sighted eyes finally light up an overweight, scruffy lump in the distance, keenly awaiting his arrival. Without a single formality, Baz looks left and right before handing Justin an ounce bag of dusty weed.
In your jacket.
Justin bemusedly looks down at the bag. The stench knocks him for 6. He's never seen that much weed before.
In your jacket. or they'll soon whack you on tag as well.
Justin stuffs the ounce in his inside jacket pocket and commences an eerie, silent mile walk with Baz. Not even a spliff's worth is handed over for Justin's efforts as they part ways. Feeling utterly used, he darts straight back to Jensen's. However, it proves far from the round 2 he was promised. For the next few hours, Darcy and Blake work tirelessly to meet dealing demand and repeatedly kick Justin off the Xbox in between runs. Jensen remains mentally unavailable, thoroughly engrossed in various newspapers, lapping up share prices amidst intense cryptocurrency research. There was Justin even up for ditching his evening's refereeing appointment, but left sober and bored by pickup time, he might as well go. Bit of money, and far livelier than this savourless excuse of a sesh.
In a bit.
Jensen throws down the newspaper and gets up.
Night's barely started. You off already?
Got footy.
Jensen's eyes narrow.
Thought you were session tonight.
Thought you were and all.
Jensen grins.
Who'd you play for?
Nah, I'm shit. I run the line for Welsh Tier 3.
Look at this one. Decent pay.
30.
30k a year? Or
30 bar a game.
Slave labour, that. For what you put up with. Blake there, rating 10 times that this evening alone.
He pulls a tray of chicken wings out of the oven.
Don't let anyone take your precious time for pennies. Ever.
This plays on Justin's mind throughout his walk and while waiting to be picked up. Overthinking that isn't helped by how stoned he is, something he hadn't bargained for after a mere 2 tokes on Jensen's gram spliff.
Is this really what I want to do? Spend my evenings and Saturdays taking shit off fat jobs worth losers? What if I'm just reenacting my childhood, seeking abuse to feel familiarity?
Malcolm and Alan, his bus pass age refereeing team for today, peek out at Justin from the car and watch him vacantly stare into space, while arched next to a war memorial.
Shit, the bed. Chongo baked or what?
Malcolm says.
Hasn't seen us.
Alan remarks.
Reckon he's fit to ref. Better fucking well be.
Malcolm honks the horn, jolting Justin into belated action as he wobbles over to the car. While being this stoned may well hinder his refereeing, the drowsy tingle proves useful in his fight to hack the laborious car ride. On and on Malcolm and Alan go, moaning about the footballing system, how they're not treated fairly, given no respect for their service to the community, how they should be at home with their feet up, watching Sky Sports. It never ends.
Is that how I want to be? Some cunt still moaning about pay and respect in 40 years' time, unfulfilled, skint, and washed up.
How do they expect us to put paperwork online?
Malcolm says, having moved on to the Welsh FA's tragedy of a technological advancement.
Phasing us boomers out. Joke shop, only got a computer last Christmas. Can I do anything more than check BBC Sport? Can I fuck? Eldest does it all for me. Alright for some.
We'll be AI soon. We all refs are on borrowed time, you'll see.
Malcolm and Alan glance at each other in fear and bewilderment, but conclude they're not letting any psychosis-riddled kid get them down. Despite this aim, Justin's killed the conversation on its head. A miserable, silent last 15 minutes of the drive to Llandudno ensues, where, in typical North Wales fashion, they arrive to tight changing rooms, forcing the trio to change at close quarters. Fresh horizontal self-inflicted shoulder knife wounds sting as he takes off his jumper. Last night's manic conclusion, where he briefly hacked at his torso and shoulder, had evaded him. With Malcolm bemoaning his lack of refereeing appointments this month, all down to piss-poor performances, Alan is just engaged enough for Justin to slide on his refereeing top without either spotting the bloody mess. Having attempted self-harm without success at the age of 12, namely due to the knife being too blunt, Justin had no such issues last night. While unable to sleep, it felt like the best course of action. Punishment for his social awkwardness induced isolation. It ended up being far from punishment. He adored the surprising rush and release the pain provided, especially that from the shoulder. Not helped by the torrential conditions, Justin endures a dismal first half, missing many a throw-in decision that forces Malcolm into taking wild stabs. In most cases, incorrectly. As he sobers up by the halfway point, his legs feel like lead. Keeping up with play becomes a chore. All he can think about is a half-time fag. That will surely help his performance and sanity. However, after ticking off from coaches and players on the way inside, he decides it's high time to bounce. With Alan otherwise engaged in a half-time dump, and Malcolm doom-scrolling through his toxic Twitter feed, Justin rolls a pathetically misshapen fag, quietly picks up his bag, and leaves them, in a linesman-less lurch. After a swift change of clothing behind a tree, it's back to Porthagraig, penniless, mentally depleted, and ready for a 12-hour kip. No barriers are up at the train station, leaving him free to jump the train back to Bangor, having fumbled his only source of income. The league won't forgive a half-time walkout, not least after a drunk fan took his place for the second half. Chapter 10. In celebration of Lionel's grand opening tomorrow, Lionel's whipped out the emerald green cashmere suit, last worn 5 years ago. Ordinarily a fairly standard dresser, he aims to up his fashion game to help business, now that he's an aspiring pillar of the community. With babysitting taken care of, they trundle to Chester in a rented car to a beautifully designed, dimly lit Tudorian Italian restaurant, bearing a neon sign oddly contrasting the listed building. While it's a journey and a half just for a meal, Lionel treats one of the managers and, as such, knows he will be warmly welcomed. They're ushered in, given a table without booking, and brought a free bottle of wine while picking their meals. Beef brazzato with pappardelle and mint for Lionel, and Sardinian stuffed eggplant for Vivian. After the first bottle of wine, Lionel's jangling nerves fade to the side, just for now.
And you said to me, absolutely blooded, I could tell, your children are going to have excellent teeth.
Had to work once. Bound to come good eventually.
Thought I was the famous line's debut.
Why me? On that blustery Shoreditch afternoon? Could have had anyone, and you go for this old tart nearly twice your age.
For the record, you were by far the youngest. You tried it on that day.
Well, I was a miss on one count. Blake is root canal central already.
His own doing. Had solid pegs until the age to shop alone.
Is he all right? Should we perhaps take another look at counselling?
He won't go. Not again. Who knows, might be fucking gay, all closeted up, sneaking off on grinder dates.
Lionel's eyes briefly dart before he smiles. Vivian gets out a cigarette.
Be 2 secs.
Vivian!
Special occasion.
What do you think you're doing? I thought we agreed after Sarah nearly choked at birth from lung tissue damage.
Vivian nods and soon sits back down.
I'm sorry. Bang out of order.
It's a stressful time.
Anticipation's burnt me to a crisp. Don't worry, please. It's all in the past.
Vivian side smiles and tops up her wine.
Fuck it.
Lionel grabs a fag out of Vivian's packet.
It is a special occasion, one I wouldn't want to share with anyone else.
Head spinners from his first fag in a decade get Lionel right in the mood for a piss-up. Another 4 fags follow, killing off his appetite for anything other than wine, leaving his food only a quarter eaten. Such is his spangled state that only 2 hours later, Vivian and Dom, the restaurant's owner, are forced to help Lionel to the taxi. Their cabbie Robbie sighs, having lugged 4 similarly paralytic drips home tonight. But none are seemingly well off as Lionel and Vivian, leaving a tasty tip firmly on the cards, should he play the game.
Look just like that Farrell, fly half of the century, wasted in the taxi game.
Lionel nods off for a sleep apnea-induced minute-long doze. Upon awakening, he bursts back to life, as vibrant as ever.
You're a top man. Thought you'd thrown me out. Top man. Anyone ever told you that?
Not today.
top of the fucking petrol-stained tree.
He shouts at a group of night revellers waiting for a bus. Vivian pulls him back into the car, just when dangerously close to clipping his head on a road sign.
Always on time. Bang tidy fares. Never once moaned about immigrants. I'll give you free hygienist appointments any time. Local stalwarts deserve looking after.
After another half hour of drivel, Robbie's finally free of Lionel and his antics. That can't be said for Vivian and the kids, who have at least an hour of paralytic gibberish to endure. The front door swinging open startles Blake, almost making him drop today's £500 profit that he's busy counting. He stuffs the notes in his pillowcase and flicks off the light. As Lionel wobbles inside, cheekily chuckling, precariously unsteady on his feet, the studious babysitter Cheryl hurriedly grabs her coat to leave.
Seen worse.
Lionel stumbles over to the cupboard and picks out a bottle of brandy.
All-nighter. Roll back the years. Bring back the glory days.
After that hellish, thirst-impelling taxi ride, she grabs the bottle from Lionel's stumbling hand and pours herself one. It only takes half a drink before he admits defeat and stumbles upstairs. Vivian darts for the bathroom and sticks on her special occasion, frilly bra. They haven't slept together in 8 months. Lionel's barely been in the mood, but meal nights are usually a subtle signal of his intent. Wrapped in a black dressing gown that's asking to be torn off, she cautiously edges into the bedroom and dimly flicks on the light, only to find Lionel, fast asleep, sprawled out on the middle of the bed, belly down, butt naked, and snoring. Opportunity missed. Took too long getting changed. Better luck next time, Viv. Having whipped her gyrating mind up for some action, a few hours of telly are in order to wind down. 2 Valium should help, which she downs with her brandy dregs before sticking on Al Jazeera News. No point sleeping now, not with the grand opening, only 5 hours away.
Life's too hard anyway, let alone with Darcy back. Just 'cause she got slapped around as a kid, that eye reminder of Paul, that all men should be punished for his sins. Don't mean I have to put up with it. I won't. I fucking refuse to. I'll leave and she'll be the one suffering, left alone in this cruel world with a rotten personality, poisoning everything in her wake. Looks don't last. Once hers are gone, that'll be it. I'll be the one who wins, who strips her of a punchbag. And if I go, they might do something about her. Sandra won't if I stay alive. The odd sliced wrist is just attention seeking. And I can't snitch. Fuck that. Life won't be worth living. Got nowhere to go, nowhere she can't find me. Stuck in Porthagraig for 2 more fucking years. And even when she leaves, she'll know where I am. It won't stop unless I stop it. Yeah. Let her have her seedy way. There's no other choice. Come on, lad. You're doing the right thing. Think of Justin, Blake, and all the other gimps she's grooming, wrapping round her finger until no longer in use. This is the only way to stop her.
To end a tortuous hour of deliberation, Owen marches into the sea facing Porth Penryn, short of a single swimming lesson in his neglected life. Not that they'd be of any use, as he puts up no fight, beckoning the waves to take him somewhere prettier, somewhere he can be free. Chapter 12. Archie Tex Conlon is meant for brighter things, a shinier future. While that may have once been possible, only a scarce shred of his sanity remains after a particularly rough couple of years. This was his second stretch inside, the first being for a year, and this, too, a feat he has no plan on repeating. Most prisoners have the chance to detox, come out a sober man, but not Tex. Prisoner's done nothing in halting his cocaine intake, which was readily available on his wing. Penniless and without prospect of changing that, a return to dealing is imminent once hitting the streets later today. Not that he's particularly keen on the idea, but his habit needs funding somehow. Manic episodes ensure he never holds down a legit job. No chance he is heading back to Liverpool, where he's from, or staying in Wrexham, where he's been imprisoned. Left to languish in a grubby hostel without work to keep his whirling mind ticking? Fuck that. There's only one place for Tex, and that's Gwynedd, where his career prospects remain healthy thanks to an old mate, Jensen Hayes. After slapping on his full black and white striped tracksuit handed back at the desk, he is enthralled to see Azum at the gate, who is also freshly released.
No way, yes, lad.
Can't keep us down for long. Where are we tearing up first then? Mackie's? Wetherspoons?
Tex adamantly shakes his head. They first met at a homeless hostel in Liverpool, way back when Tex was a budding 17-year-old scrapper trying to break into drug dealing. Of Afghanistani descent on his father's side and Irish on his mother's, Az grew up in Bradford's care system after being given up for adoption at the age of 1. Ever since his first Borstal stretch age 15, he's moved around freely, often staying in the areas of whichever jail he's freed from. As such, he has no qualms about heading down the A55 with Tex. Keen to get to work, they jump on a train for Bangor, with Tex not even gifting Az the chance of a celebratory sausage McMuffin first. No bathroom hiding is necessary as the train conductor doesn't bother checking their tickets, which is just as well, as neither planned on buying one. Getting off the train somewhat derails their mood, both expected more from the student city. They stroll through the lumbersome, partly dilapidated high street, gutted to find no McDonald's. Refusing to compromise or trek the 3-mile walk, Az orders a takeaway to the beach, where they stare out into the Menai Strait's choppy currents. The second their check-in window comes around, they march to their temporary, humble abode. Its crumbling courtyard wall sets the tone for what they're about to witness. As post-release accommodation goes, this hostel's as grotty as it gets.
What Yankee melon planters here?
Tex begrudgingly says.
We'll show 'em who's boss, mate.
Upon release of their first sentences, they were handed their own hostel rooms. However, a peek through the window confirms their worst nightmare. 6 bunk beds, 10 other sweaty drips, and a few months of shacking up with a load of grubby sheepshaggers. Reluctant to ruin their release day, Tex and Az vibrantly burst in.
Chest time, boys!
Against hostel protocol, Tex flicks on the light, startling those lying in bed, wishing the day away, having long run out of juice to fall back asleep.
Watch out.
Fuck 'em. Idle lying pricks. 10 o'clock it is.
As the self-proclaimed hostel's top dog, Mark, the burliest among the room of recently released criminals, boots the leg of his bottom bunk bed.
You stay right there in bed. Don't mind us.
Let's bounce, Tex.
Getting me some rest first, la.
Tex leaps up the bed's ladder, the bunk above Mark's, stepping on a recently washed, damp t-shirt drying on the ladder rung.
Test these springs while we're here. I'm not hacking one of your foursomes, this has.
Mark jumps out of bed and points in Tex's face.
You did that on purpose.
You on about?
Me fucking t-shirt! Get down here! Now!
Mark demands. Az storms over to Mark, but before he can sock him one, Pierce, a gangly army veteran turned heroin addict, gets out of bed and pushes Az into a wall. Tex leaps off the bed and elbows Mark flush on the jaw. Sensing a knockout on the cards, Tex throws a wild, looping right hook, only for Mark to duck it and land an uppercut of his own, chipping a back tooth of Tex's in half. With Az pinned in the corner, Pierce peppers him with sloppy punches, none having any effect. As Pierce soon tires, Az shoves him backwards, buying the space to swing his arm back and knock the dopey prick out cold with a wallop on the temple.
Come on, Tex, sack this man.
Az says as Tex knees Mark in the balls before strolling out. They have fatter fish to fry anyway. Despite not getting the desired rest, Tex leads Az to the parcel shop, where his fake motorbike license awaits. Despite being charged 8 times the website price for risk pay to a life sentence prisoner, Tex couldn't be happier. Well worth 3 weeks of pot-washing wages. Lionel's head spins upon awakening for what is easily his worst hangover since uni. And what a day for it. But he can't back out now, not from his grand opening. A shot of whiskey straightens him out, just about shooing off the impending chunder looming in his stinging stomach. To hide the profuse sweating synonymous with his anxious hangovers, he changes clothing plans, opting instead for a black shirt and red tie. A spate of dizziness halts his rapid progress. He stumbles down onto the fortuitously shut toilet seat to break the fall. A quiet second is needed before wax time. Serving size exuberance leaves a thick clump on the side of his head that only partially clears with a wipe. Thank God no one of note will be there. No sneering maternal family or jealous ex-classmates. Lionel has revelled in his relative anonymity up north. Nobody to bring up the past, urging him to fail, judging his every move. Just Lionel Sawyer, respected local dentist. Whether he can maintain that title remains to be seen. Freshly suited and proud of himself for somehow getting ready on time, Lionel bumbles into the living room, bewildered to find Vivian asleep on the sofa. But it's her day off the school run. The one time Blake's come through and walked the kids to school, so he cuts her some slack, even if this makes him 10 minutes late. That is until spitting his mint in the bin and spotting an empty strip of Valium. Left without time to pick a new outfit, it's last night's dress and tied up hair for Vivian. 5 minutes into the car journey, Lionel's uncharacteristic road rage momentarily wakes his dozy wife from her leftover Valium buzz.
It'll be fine.
Hope so.
You were born for this. They already love you. Never known you to be nervy.
Well, I wasn't, until a tasty discovery this morning.
Vivian's eyes narrow in a poorly executed attempt at mimicking confusion.
Such as?
Do not fuck about with me, Vivian.
What have I supposedly done this time?
Last chance.
Vivian eventually shrugs.
Dumped in the bin. Couldn't even muster a pinch of discretion.
Lionel holds up the empty strip of Valium.
Had prayed they were Blake's. Today of all days.
Vivian sighs.
Didn't want to burden you.
Don't want to hear it. Let's just get through this as amicably and gracefully as is possible.
Lionel pulls up outside of Sawyer's specialist dentist care. A velvet ribbon blocks the doorway, applied by Ms. Jack. Regular elderly customers Margaret and Claire wait alongside her by the door, freshly poached from his old workplace, one of 10 who've promised him their custom.
Best if I crack on alone.
Okay. Still fancy heading out after? Cheryl's booked again.
Despite barely being fit to drive, she climbs into the driver's seat and hurtles off. Lionel grins at the old women.
The stalwarts are out in force.
Missing chapel for this?
Ms. Jack sternly reminds Lionel while tapping her watch.
And I am honoured.
Nearly snipped it myself.
What would I do without you, Margaret?
Lionel demolishes the ribbon with one smooth swipe of the scissors and leads his fan club inside. While Ms. Jack and Margaret stick around after their inaugural appointment, even treating Lionel to a half-time bakery run, he can't bear to stick around. Not even for the 3 afternoon appointments Margaret's bagged him with her bingo crew. Hangover simply won't allow it. Time to abort. As he slams the door shut and lowers the shutters, Az and Tex have just concluded their prowl for a motorbike, settling on a lovely yellow 250cc Yamaha in top nick. While Tex is yet to master the art of hot wiring, Az is a pro. Motorbikes are his speciality, having previously ran a successful underground parts business in his early 20s, using stock salvage from stolen bikes.
Wait here a sec.
Tex whispers, once diligently spotting Lionel as part of his lookout duties. Lionel glances their way before swiftly bolting it into the taxi and keeping his head down until out of sight.
Fucking dentist prick.
Part of the reason why Lionel was so keen on leaving Kent is that he is a closet homosexual. Not that he knew until his 40s. He and Vivian formerly shared a great sex life, but postnatal depression after Harrison's birth saw it fizzle out without a trace. Being from a small, tight-knit, gossipy town, Lionel had to travel afield for his dates to escape anyone locally inevitably finding out. A journey through multiple online dating sites ensued until he found Quintin, who became his best friend and lover, until perishing in a car crash only 6 months later. Which is how the night at Anglesea's main gay bar starts.
You're only having a look. It's not cheating, just a night-long break. Can't be around Viv when she's doped up. Besides, she's fucked me over, big time. Just having a look. Nothing more, nothing less. Few gins and a gander.
A look simply won't suffice, and Lionel can't help but leer at the only other people there, a young group of gay lads out for a stag party, who soon usher him over. Not content with offering just their company, they gift Lionel free passage on their £2,000 bar tab paid by the groom's father. To sink the hangover if anything, Lionel takes full advantage and is 5 double brandies down within 2 hours. It's soon time for poppers, a first for Lionel, who devours a few whiffs before swiftly buying an entire bottle off the group's rambunctious drug fixer, Ron. To balance everyone out, Ron whips out a 3-gram bag of ketamine and passes it around the group, all seemingly above board to the barman, who doesn't say a word. Supposedly, according to Ron, the rush of poppers and alcohol, topped by a touch of ketamine, provides the ultimate all-round high. Lionel turns down the first 3 offers, but grows intrigued by the vacant joy on their frazzled faces. Seeking a slice of that to evade thoughts of his ominous row with Vivian, Lionel gives in and does a key's worth. While initially uncomfortable and slightly queasy, he gets right into the wobble swing once the high has peaked. Once the buzz wears off and he re-enters civilization, it becomes apparent that Ron's multiple leg rubs under the table were far from imagined. While tempted, he decides to wait another half hour until making a decision, cut short by Ron grabbing Lionel's hand and leading him to a hotel room, met by raucous cheers from the entire pub, including staff. It's all over in 2 minutes, with Ron's preference for an older man ensuring he doesn't last long on top. Lionel's guilt fails to kick in until this very moment, just as Ron is seeking some aftercare before carrying on drinking. This isn't forthcoming, as Lionel darts out of the pub and power walks his way to blustery Beaumaris Beach, where he waits for a taxi home. Chapter 13. While Jensen's mother Lizzie is all for him operating business from their shared house, he is adamant on keeping a separate trap house. Being the youngest of 6 children already put Lizzie at a disadvantage. She was left behind once her older siblings moved out at a young age, leaving her alone to deal with her volatile father's PTSD. After moving out at 15, she flew off the rails. Unbridled freedom saw her swiftly fall into drugs and become a regular cocaine sniffer within 6 months. In hope of securing supply, she dated multiple dealers and lived a parasitic life that only spiraled her addiction. However, for a brief spell, the suppliers grew tired of her scabby ways. Unable to stave off cravings, she turned to sex work to fund the habit. This is how Jensen was born, although she never sought the father's identity. Before his birth, she had 4 miscarriages, and a further 3 afterwards. This reluctant career ended once she saved enough money to start a small cocaine line of her own, which she ran until Jensen started dealing. As an only child, Jensen was forced to grow up fast due to Lizzie's over-involvement. Despite having scores of party buddies, she burdened him with adult issues from a young age. While most flew in one ear and out of the other, the finance-related stuff made him painfully aware of their struggles. Lizzie unfortunately blew most profits up her nose, often leaving Jensen without the necessities. Despite this, he was encouraged to do well in school and breezed through his GCSEs without trying. One positive aspect of Lizzie's addiction was encouraging Jensen, other than a hairy year of being addicted to MDMA in his late teens, to avoid taking drugs. However, this didn't stop him picking up dealing. Being around Lizzie's perpetual cocaine parties introduced him to many high-level suppliers over the years. Most entrusted him with large quantities, owing to his abstinence. Everything changed for them a year ago, when Lizzie suffered a cocaine-induced stroke, leaving her mostly bedbound and in need of full-time care. This solidified Jensen's ambition to deal and climb the ladder, being that he wants to fund her care after being let down by the NHS on multiple occasions during the first few months. In dire need of a break from the trap house, Jensen lethargically loiters in his mother's garden as steam fizzles out of the window from the linguine he's making. He often cooks for both his mother and her industrial, no-nonsense carer, Shanice, who's dusting the skirting boards for the second time today.
Don't you worry, Liz. Be back raving soon. I'll take you.
Shanice declares.
Would like to think so. Year in bed hasn't half whet the appetite.
Lizzie says,
Be ready in a minute, Mum.
Help us up, would you, Sean?
Shanice gazes over at Lizzie. She rarely gets out of bed, having suffered mobility issues that affect her walking.
You sure?
Not munching my boy's 5-star cuisine from bed.
Shanice shrugs and painstakingly helps Lizzie to the table. Following their scrappy introduction, Tex and Azum find their bags thrown outside of the hostel. Oh well, time for a spin. A gnarly day of zooming the salvage motorbike around Talibont back roads puffs them out. Seeking a place to crash, they hit up Jensen. While he welcomes them in, they're only afforded corners of the living room floor in sleeping bags. Not ideal for trying to sleep, especially as Darcy hammers DMT with Shanice, a journey Tex eventually joins them on. Sensibly enough, Az doesn't trust himself with trips, not if he wants to avoid violent outbursts and smashed windows, as the pain of psychological abuse suffered in care comes flooding back. This is a planned bonding experience between Darcy and the boys, as they're soon to start dealing under her stewardship. With Shanice scared off by Tex's creepy advances and inhibited sense of spatial awareness, Az finally conks out for a doze. This lasts all but 2 hours, until Tex and Darcy strut back in with crates and dry, crispy garage bacon baps to kick off the business day. Blake soon follows, ready for work, having left school after one lesson, a decision he soon regrets after being made everyone's bitch. Tex is supposed to be on crack duties, while Az has been started off on ketamine, a far leaner workload to test his competency. However, with Tex too pissed to walk in a straight line, and Az testing Blake's resolve and malleability, they delegate him all the runs. Itching to catch a session on his Xbox, Justin rocks up by lunchtime, where Blake, Darcy, Tex and Az are engaged in a fierce split-screen online Call of Duty battle. Jensen's left a half-gram spliff and a line of cocaine ready for Justin on arrival, his customary welcoming gift. However, the latter of which is swerved, with Justin having just suffered a brutal 2-day come-down, an episode of psychosis involving intense delusions of Wendy following him around.
Blake, cover the bus.
Get in my Zoom, fucking clatter the cunt.
Tex manically says while jumping on the spot.
Can't keep us down for long.
Az restlessly says, feeling the frantic pace in his old age.
Get that noob tube out.
I fucking am.
Now's your chance.
Blake executes a perfectly timed grenade launcher blast in a sweet spot between the three, killing them all and winning the quartet their first game of the day.
Get in there!
Blake roars as Darcy punches his shoulder in appreciation.
Chest time, boys!
Tex wiggles his hips before leaping in the air with the wired controller still in hand, thus pulling the Xbox off the shelf and onto the floor.
Fuck you doing?
Justin says as he runs over. Tex erupts and shoves Justin to the ground.
Don't you ever talk to me like that again.
Don't be gammy, Tex.
I'll show him gammy if he carries on.
My Xbox that, be careful.
Tex cynically cackles, grabs the FIFA case, takes out the disc and lobs it out of the window, just as Jensen storms back in from the toilet.
You leave Billings alone.
Not taking half some gimpy little kid. Fuck, he's even doing here.
Go and get him a new FIFA now.
No chance.
He helps Justin to his feet.
Sorry about that. We'll have a new one for you by tomorrow. He won't be doing that again.
Frothing with fury befitting his purple face, Tex takes a rare time out, anxious not to jeopardise his income source and temporary accommodation. That slap caught Tex right on his chipped tooth, knocking his inside cheek into its flailing nerve that drugs had masked any pain for up to then. To avoid snapping Justin's neck, he takes Az out for a spin on the bike. They head down the back roads to Bryn Keggin, where he repeatedly whizzes around in a loop. Only by the third lap, the sting, not helped by the bitter wind blowing through his mouth, proves too rough to bear. They know just where to go, Sawyer's Gaff. Fearing being pulled over and made to wait for treatment while back in a cell on this beautiful day, Tex makes Az walk the 2 miles back to Jensen's. Tex waltzes into the empty shop. Early days have proven dismal for Lionel, which hasn't been helped by his sluggish, hungover start to life in business. But despite this, he is far from thrilled to see Tex and his potential business.
Do you have an appointment?
The men's here, lad. Won't be needing one.
Right. I'm afraid you will, as a matter of fact.
Dunno about that.
We don't offer a walk-in service, not here.
See, you might have to change policy since I saw you snooping yesterday.
What?
Don't pretend you don't know. Now, that is a sign of good faith that you're not a good rat.
No issue there.
Well, you got to do me a free cap, so I know that you can be trusted.
Tex lightly slaps Lionel's face, squares into the appointment room and plonks himself down on the dentist's chair. Lionel duly obliges and inwardly pities himself for being so weak. Yet to make amends with Vivian, and embarrassed to face the family and lie about his booming day, Lionel shoots straight to Beaumaris in a cab, 2 hours before his scheduled closing time. On arrival, it's dead. Not a soul in sight. All the better for Lionel. Time to loosen the old nerves in case anyone rocks up later. He goes about that by shooting 3 double whiskies down in no time, necessitating an emergency burger and chips on the beach to avert an empty stomach chunder. Seeking a hair of the dog or 3, Ron slumps on a bar stool upon Lionel's return. To Ron's dismay, his secret lover's not quite as vibrant today, irrationally firing up his abandonment trauma. Ron chomps half a 300mg MDMA pill and drops the rest in Lionel's drink, while he's outside smoking. In need of a scapegoat, Ron makes sure to dish out a quadruple serving of poppers before Lionel slurps it down, as to blame the MDMA tingle on an XL Poppers toke. While more sex was inevitable deep down, this puts any doubts of Lionel's to bed. No quickie this time, as they lie in each other's arms all night, in between bi-hourly romps on the springy hotel bed. Chapter 14. Some of the initial shine on Justin's newfound freedom wanes in the coming weeks. Progression felt possible while earning money, but without football refereeing, hope languishes at an all-time low. It's his birthday next week, the big 16, of age to be discarded by the care system, stuck in a grotty council flat without guidance for 2 pitiful years before potential homelessness, squalor, and addiction take hold. He does, however, look forward to getting money from Universal Credit. This will finally give him autonomy, albeit limited by finances, over his food choices. Jensen whips up the odd meal at the trap house, but Justin mostly goes hungry in between to avoid Porther Craig's dismal cuisine. Darcy's deliberate racket on one side mean both sleep and energy to revise for GCSEs prove scarce. Not that he stands a chance of getting enough Cs for college. Since entering the care system, he has perpetually bunked off in favour of hovering around Jensen's flat, where a pattern of being used for trivial tasks rather than his company has persisted. This makes Darcy's summoning for a game, albeit as everyone's out dealing and she's bored, all the stranger. Not one to question this golden opportunity, he rushes over, relishing the chance to spend time with her, alone.
Been a painful while, boy. Get yourself over here.
Bet you 3 fags I win.
You ain't got any though.
Don't need 'em. Results in the bag.
You can owe me them then. Just this once.
Do us in advance.
Darcy rolls her eyes.
Skint, are you?
Just smoke the last.
Darcy grins and throws over a fag.
Some graft going in, matey. Anytime you game.
Don't want a deal, I've told you.
Darcy boils inside, masking it in form of a shady smirk.
Above it, are you?
Nah, fuck that. Just don't want to get sent down.
Same as any job. If you're smart like me and don't get caught.
Darcy sips a beer.
Less hours and more than you'd ever earn for running a Mackey's.
Justin looks down.
What are you doing for the 16th?
Justin shrugs.
Bit of a sesh. Should I find a few quid?
Darcy shakes her head.
That's only the start, lad. Life experiences. Missed out on. When there's work there to be had. You're 16th. Never going to come around again and you're too skint to enjoy it. Be a struggle now. Living off toll. New flats lecky meter to run. 13 bar a week at least on Becky. Be a choice of food or smoking, if you're lucky.
Don't appreciate this.
You what?
The pressure to get involved. My value being measured in compliance.
Nah, course not.
Need a bit of a break.
From what?
From all this.
Having mates? Being looked after? Having somewhere to sesh? Us lot have kept your chin right up. Don't you forget it.
Nothing personal, Darcy, just rather not get involved.
Suit yourself.
Life's fucked as it is.
She scoffs.
Have a Brahma one down at the food bank, lad.
As the day itself finally rolls around, panic stations well and truly set in. A week from now, he'll find himself stuffed on the 5th floor of a grubby block of flats, one renowned for being mould-ridden. After a week without socialising, his mood is bleak, barricaded by a wardrobe with only his Xbox and a pouch of tobacco posted by Jensen to keep him company. It's far from a 16th to remember.
This is no time to sulk. I'll go to the exams, just turn up and see what happens. Get 3 C's, and I don't look like a total drip for bosses. I'll get a job, shit wages to start, but it'll be sound. That's my birthday present. A life clear of inevitable prison for dealing. They'll only fuck me off once I get caught peddling their powder. Will get me closer to Darcy, though. Chance to impress. But no, fuck that. No bird's worth prison time. Pissing what little prospect I have down the drain for a life of halfway houses, probation meetings, and local newspaper slandering. Leave that all to Blake. He's welcome to it. I'm forfeiting Pips as soon as I wake up tomorrow. She's not getting it in my name, because I don't fucking need it. Never have, never will. What a joke. Kids stuck in wheelchairs, forced to turn off their heating because of energy bills, dying in their own homes, or because of people like me, taking what don't belong in my pocket, because of cunts scrounging for an easy life, getting the government riled up on frauds to watch, shutting out those who need it, those who can't fight their own case. Lost, drizzly voices, fading out of sight.
Chapter 15. Blake's work performance has suffered in the last few weeks, his motivations at an all-time low. Fury at the hiring of techs and Az and their subtle bullying has seen him slack off. While Darcy is adamant that she wants to pull the plug, a lack of options and Justin's reluctance to step in means Jensen's willing to give Blake another shot. His early promise as a budding young runner in the first few weeks was evident, so he's been spending time with Blake, taking him on days out to football games, meals out, anything he's not been getting at home in the hope of boosting morale and productivity. Today they mullered a wood-fired takeaway pizza on Carnarvon Beach after watching TNS spank the Canaries 6-0 in football. This loosened Blake up to no end.
You know you have a future with me. Darcy's a stopgap. Only be your boss for a bit.
It's alright.
Look, I know you don't see eye to eye, but do you trust me?
Course I fucking do.
So what's holding you back? There's more in you. A true grafter, desperate to be unleashed.
You really reckon? Honestly?
Swear down. You wait until we expand. I'll be needing line supervisors, a position above what Darcy's doing. No promises now, you've got some way to go. But I can see you there.
Be way better, that.
Why? What's on your mind?
Running round, man. Face all over the town. Everyone knows what I'm doing. Parents don't. Yet. Gets me all sketched out.
That'll pass, lad.
Stepdad, the fucking prick. Just opened a dentist in town. Darting round could bring him a bad name.
Can't be pranging about shit like that. Not where you could be headed.
Don't give a fuck about him. But my mum, it'll bring her shame.
Mate, fuck them both. Took you away from where you loved, where you'd made your mates, had it all going for you. To come here, to this shithole. She chose him over you. Don't let that slip your mind.
Guess so.
You owe him nothing and have a future to think about.
She has left me in a lurch. Not like there's any decent jobs going.
Precisely that. Fuck else are you gonna do? It's Gwynedd. There's no hope. Not for cunts like us.
Yeah, fuck 'em. Never think about me. Puppet and a half, my whole life.
Think it's bad now? Younger Sib's getting all the love? Wait till you finish school. Till you're off college age, working age. Think they're gonna let you stick around?
Hope so.
Exactly. You don't know. Decent parents wouldn't leave a shred of doubt. You wait. You fucking wait. Be out on your ass just like Billings. So don't blow this chance of a lifetime, Blake. Gonna need all the dough you can get.
I'll show you all. ultimate Blake Bolton from now on. Flying out those bags, taking this line to the next level.
I'm a sound lad. Happy to give you another chance.
Jensen's phone buzzes. It's his mother. After being informed that Shanice is ceasing to care for Lizzie, his face descends into despair. Lizzie's round-the-clock care sets Jensen back £1,500 a week. She doesn't need every last aspect of help that buys, but he insists on someone being there at all times. However, his card has bounced. Shanice had done an extra day for free in good faith, but has given him 3 hours' notice before she leaves. Jensen slams on the brakes and pulls into a sketchy lay-by that barely gets them off the road. An internet banking glance confirms all suspicions. He is a victim of fraud, once again. While his income comes in cash, Shanice's company don't accept cash as payment, therefore £6,000 a month has to be loaded into his account. This is only possible by paying an online clothing seller friend £1,000 a month to share his bank account, as to make it appear like legitimate income flows through. Last time it happened, they only lost £1,000 each, but on top of Jensen's £6,000, his mates also had 5 taken. He can't call the bank and bring attention his way, and with half a kilo of cocaine and 3 kilos of weed freshly bought, he is out of money for the foreseeable future. Mammoth NHS waiting lists that could take months to conquer therefore leave Lizzie short of care. Time to buck up. The responsibility is bestowed upon him. Blake is dropped off and made to walk, there and then, leaving a 3-mile trek back to the trap house. While furious, Jensen remains amicable with Shanice, against all instincts. He thanks her for the extra day and promises a free 1/8 of cocaine up to once a week. Despite adapting to the role, he refuses to tackle the bedpans. This comes at the expense of lugging Lizzie upstairs to the toilet, sometimes up to 6 times a day. Although painful, this suits her down to the ground. Any time after bed is swarmed at. These duties are already hitting business. While Darcy's capable, he struggles to see her coping with covering parts of his role. They have no family around to help. Those living in the Midlands have long distanced themselves owing to Lizzie's cocaine addiction-induced thieving. A long night of 90s-era EastEnders repeats, between physical labour therefore ensues.
Got anything stronger over there?
Lizzie rasps.
Had your gabapentin an hour ago?
Not cut it for months. Need 4 to make a dent. Can't go overboard again.
Jensen sighs and clenches his jaw, presenting the guilt trip soon coming his way.
Just a line'll do.
You're not having any beak.
Come on.
Fuck that right off. Get that out of your head. No beak, not off me.
You don't know what it's like. No idea. Tingling up me side, day in, day out, while I'm trying to get a bit of kip.
Mum!
Sound for you, innit? Able-bodied. Come and go as you please. Make a nice living. Hope this never happens to you. Not even letting me sesh. What else have I got? I'm fucked. I want to do it myself.
Jensen sheds a quiet tear, takes 2 30mg Valium out of a strip and brings them over with a pint of water. He sticks the pills and water on the bedside table and sits back down. Lizzie picks it up, nearly dropping the glass with her weak, trembling left arm. Jensen runs over, takes it off her, drops the pills in her mouth and tips some water in to follow. This does the job, sending her into a rare, blissful early night, leaving Jensen an evening for emergency research into his temporary new duties. Chapter 16. Justin's day is here, that of freedom, ending his grisly short spell in care. Time for his own flat, and most importantly, his own rules. Just a few exams left before it's time to chill for the leisurely summer holiday of his dreams. To avoid removal fees, Daffyd kindly helps Justin move his bits. Some of this joy dissipates as they pull up to the apartment block. To his irking, the place is only 10 doors up from Jensen's trap house. Not ideal, given his desire to remain incognito. Darcy spots Justin, lugging his TV in, and smirks, just what he didn't want. But she can't force her way in, and this at least offers a window to the odd peer from a safe distance. The studio flat itself is grotty, clearly riddled with damp mould that's been painted over in gloopy fashion. With everything stuffed into one small room, the bed lies piercingly close to the whirling, old-fashioned fridge that, even after a scrub, reeks of stale milk. Swarms of woodlice occupy the sticky kitchen cupboards, with holes galore offering access from the wall panels. Revising for tomorrow's exam proves impossible, with heroin addicts and dealers littered throughout next door's 3 floors. Customers hammer on their door, time and time again, lobbing rocks at the windows and bellowing down the street to be let in. While Justin has his own kitchenette, the bathroom is shared between 4 studio flats. But with the toilet caked in dried shit, and the shower basin rinsed with thick, slimy yellow build-up, Justin opts for a piss in the sink. Stretching on his tiptoes to reach splatters some out, which nestles in the carpet, only intensifying the room's stale stench. Soon ascertaining that nobody in the house is worth chumming with, his first night there is as lonely as it gets. While Porther Craig's security was lax, it provided some level of comfort. That's all gone. Anything feels possible here. Blasting heavy metal roars from 2 different rooms, keeping him up all night. Not even a spliff an hour changes that, leaving him groggy for the exam. Nonetheless, this is just the booting Justin needs to push on with his job search. A drive that only grows after leaving the maths exam having filled out half. Which, after inevitably flunking his English exam, leaves prospects of a college course unlikely. While only of school leaving age next month, he has been afforded special dispensation for universal credit, which will be crucial now that his disability benefit claim has ended. This does, however, after rent, leave him with £20 a week, which, with a tobacco pouch lasting a week at a stretch, leaves him with £7 a week for food and only a microwave to cook in. Ready meals are his go-to: dirt cheap 70p lasagna and fish pies from Lidl, cereal for breakfast and peanut butter on value toast for lunch. That's on a good day, with the others restricted to just 1 meal. Smoking takes the edge off the hunger pangs, helping Justin justify his wayward financial planning. They're of little help to him down at the dole office, failing to inspire an ounce of belief into his job search, which, given his non-existent experience, contacts and the area's dearth opportunities, is of no surprise. Rejection letters galore come flying in, flooding his otherwise desolate email account. All generic, of course, with people like Justin never afforded an explanation, no matter how keen and dogged they are in their pursuit. What he does miss is weed. Boycotting Jensen's house has cut off his casual supply, and with no money, the chances of getting any are slim. Days in the studio flat are long, tedious, and consumed by daytime TV sitcoms, without anything to fuzz the boredom. 3 weeks in, having caned through most of a tobacco pouch in 3 days, he is left skint for the rest of the month, with not even a tin of beans in sight. The food bank isn't in town for 3 days either, just at the worst time, having bagged an interview at Burger King in 2 days. To conserve energy, he sleeps for 11 hours, lying dormant in bed for the days before as the hunger pains dissipate after 1 day, making way for a dull ache that he becomes accustomed to. Despite this, the interview is a disaster. Justin only just finds the strength to lug himself there, let alone answer any questions coherently. Showing anger at his dopey responses on no less than 3 occasions, sees him rejected. They fear the place's fast pace would get the better of him. Seeking company after the disastrous day, down to his last pinch of tobacco and damned if he will use it for anything else bar a spliff, Justin texts Jensen, asking if he can come around. Within a minute, his request is passionately accepted. Despite Az and Tex's disdain at the decision, Jensen orders everyone to be nice to Justin. Struggling to cope with his mother's full-on care, Jensen is desperate to increase revenue. However, he has always been a standoffish dealer. Right from the very start, he knew to get others running and minimise the risk to himself. Therefore, he needs more runners. Desperately. Darcy's instructed to be slick in her recruitment game, with Justin serving as a prime candidate owing to his loyalty and virtues. A rarity in this world, rammed with scoundrels looking to get one over on you. Jensen gets in a KFC Mountain, 60 quid's worth of food, which arrives just as Justin does while lugging his Xbox. Never have chicken wings, zinger burgers and grotty burger oil gravy hit the spot so sweetly. Worth the inevitable month before he gets a game on his Xbox alone. As the onset of a full stomach sets in, following a long-awaited joint, Justin ponders, occasionally taken out of his psychological stride by Az sneering his way, resenting that he has to hang around with kids to make a living.
What if I just move a bit? A manageable amount, quarter ounce here and there, half if I need to stock the fridge, enough to get stoned, see myself through, start enjoying telly again, get some sleep. It'd be on my terms. The amount I need for Percy, and a smidge left over for Munch. Jensen's sound. Darcy fucks me about. I can go straight to him. Still got graph going, Darcy?
Darcy peeks up, subtly grins, trundles over, snatches a chicken wing and takes a seat next to Justin.
How do I know you'll hack it?
Done my internship. Scoped you all in the act for donkeys.
Darcy shrugs.
Different game shotting outside.
Outside?
Won't be doing it from here.
Right.
Gonna chase after a baghead. He stares you up and down, sees you for the runt you are and fucks off with our money.
I only want to do green. No smack or nothing like that.
Well, we seek ambition here. And a bit of green with your nerves. Risk of capture might not be viable, I'm afraid.
What?
Risk reward's well off on that one.
Jensen storms back inside with a crate of hobgoblin, having hidden behind the door.
Fucking hell. Stuck in your room, hermiting away, no money for food? It'll be an honour. My honour. Spotted your potential a mile off. Just what we were looking for.
He passes Justin a beer.
Never fret about me.
Darcy grunts, takes a second to overcome her mini meltdown, and breaks out a shallow grin.
What can I get you then, boss?
Q a green, I reckon.
A Q? You can have up to 4-5 Aussies.
Nah, that's big time. Just a bit to keep me ticking, if you would.
Darcy pitifully scoffs. Anyone bar Jensen's golden boy would be dished a slap for that lip. She chucks 7 grams in cling film, too stingy to spare one of her precious baggies for a measly quarter ounce.
50 bar, and you've got 3 days.
40!
He's only getting a Q.
We don't rinse our own.
Jensen storms over to Darcy.
Don't be getting snaky, Darcy. We're a family. Trust is paramount.
Now able to afford half-decent microwave food and, if stingy with use, the running of his coin-operated electric meter, it only takes Justin a couple of days to overcome the early onset malnourishment. Socially, he's reinvigorated and finds himself seamlessly welcomed back into Jensen's clique. The dealing itself proves a doddle, with Justin able to sell a quarter ounce of small bags to kids from Porther Craig. This gives him a false sense of security, that dealing is a piece of piss, that all the horror stories were exaggerated, or just told by those without street wisdom. Chapter 17. Sales skyrocket for Darcy, Tex and Az over the coming weeks. Especially for Az, who's taking ketamine profits beyond Jensen's projected upper ceiling with his hands-on approach. This has entailed painstakingly establishing himself as a head-on the after-party scene. All three are charging more than instructed and keeping an extra chunk for themselves. But such is Jensen's absence owing to his grueling care schedule that he barely notices, for now. Should only be a few weeks until he does, would be days or even hours had he not increased his own cocaine intake to cope with the pressure. This is a rare lapse in his otherwise airtight self-discipline. Barring his brief teenage dalliance, he has steered clear of all drugs besides weed and occasional Valium. Having hit their daily quotas, and void of Jensen's hovering presence urging them to push sales through the night, Darcy, Tex and Az march to Upper Bangor for drinks. Justin and Blake are excluded due to their age, a barrier Darcy can swerve with her fake ID. Just to be on the safe side, they pack 20 bags each of coke and ketamine. Given the swathes of lingering students, most of whom being regular customers, all but 5 of the bags fly out within 2 hours. 3 grams of cocaine going to the pub landlord Bruce, who doesn't have the cash to pay, ensures their flow of double whiskies is plentiful. Enough for 20 rounds, 10 of which they annihilate in between keying lumps of barely cut cocaine under the table. With Az puking in the beer garden and Tex unsteady after mixing his last bump with ketamine, Darcy decides they're leaving, bagging another night out tomorrow with their 10 surplus rounds. However, with 5 grams of cocaine left to flog, she insists they take the long route home, Bangor Mountain to be exact, to scope the outdoor parties that will no doubt be crying out for a bugle top-up. They search high and wide, through all the nooks and crannies, but without rustling from a subpar speaker or disorganised cackling within earshot. Tex insists they call it a day. Having none of it, Darcy feeds the scouse slacker 3 quick-fired bumps of cocaine and perseveres. She never walks up hills, not unless there's something to gain. No way will she leave this one empty-handed. Their prowl leads them to a bloke on a rock overlooking the city sporting a straw hat, no other than Lionel. Tex puts any sluggishness aside and storms over.
What are you doing up here, boss?
I don't want any trouble,
Lionel insists, cowering in his muddy boots.
Bender's come up here, away from the city glare.
I'm just relaxing. Nice view after a few pints.
Well, you're either here for a shag or some gear.
I'll mount in this, and only one answer's acceptable.
Bit of Charles. Yeah, that's what I'm after.
Fuck, do you know you're not going to rat me out, as you haven't already done for the bike?
I haven't, and won't, I swear.
Tell you what.
Darcy bends forward and stares into Lionel's eyes.
You guzzle what Tex gives you, fat fucking slug, free of charge. So I know you're to be trusted.
She chucks Tex a bag.
Then, and only then, will I dish you a bag and send you on your merry way.
Lionel's heart races. He's never done cocaine. Not even been close. Tex racks up a chunky line on his phone screen. Darcy smirks at its deliberately mammoth size, rolls up a crusty, snot-caked £5 note and hands it to Lionel.
Bon appetit, la!
Tex joyously says as he lays the phone on Lionel's lap. Lionel awkwardly bends down and gives it his best shot, only managing to snort a quarter of the line. What goes up his nose mostly shoots back out as he splutters. Darcy and Tex grimace.
See, problems we have is that you're up to no good.
Either meeting another bender, or ratting us out tomorrow morning.
Both are a problem for us. Telling us it's our turf, our income.
Tex says while throwing Lionel's hat into the bushes.
I'll never come up here again.
But you're up here now, aren't you?
Darcy yanks the phone from his pocket and smirks.
Ron?
She leans into Lionel's face.
What's been cracking with him, eh?
Client.
Phoning you at 3 in the morning while you're up here meeting for bent sex.
Lionel, darling.
Lionel's heart sinks. Darcy passes the phone.
Do hurry up, freezing it is.
Leave, Ron. Go home now. It's not safe.
Darcy snatches the phone, hangs up, and bashes it into his head, drawing blood in an instant.
Disrespectful, eh? Wife and kids at home. Mother of our boy Blake. And you're out here, cheating. Which is grim enough. If it weren't with a bloke. On our fucking turf.
Lionel scampers towards the downward path. Tex gazes at Darcy, who gleefully nods her head. Tex grins, menacingly darts his way and boots his running leg before stamping on his head.
Bon appetit, la!
Darcy squares over, nearly slipping on the boggy descent.
Don't stop there, no?
Az looks over at Darcy and reluctantly glances down at a spluttering Lionel.
Blake's our boy. Family, aren't we?
Tex grins and lands a few downward punches on Lionel, who quickly loses the energy to sob. Darcy glares daggers at Az, who without thinking boots Lionel in the ribs. Instantly regretting his subservient actions, he looks away in dismay. Darcy ponders before nodding, satisfied with the night's work. As such, Tex drags Lionel off the path and rolls him down a hill on the side, leaving him sprawled out against a fence 5 foot down. Darcy swaggers down the path, followed by Az, who anxiously peeks back at a fiery-eyed Tex. No way is he done yet, not before taking a piss on Lionel's barely conscious face.
Sorted me out, that.
Lionel groans and clutches his chest while convulsing. But soon enough, Lionel's dead, owing to an adverse reaction to the cocaine and the intense shock of his very first and last hiding. That's it. They've bottled it, taken the games too far and squandered the cash cow that is, Bangor. With Az delusionally righteous in his lack of involvement and instigation, he tries to walk away, only to be dragged back by Tex. They're in this together now. His sly boot in the chest makes sure of that. With both of the path's exits leading to streetlights, they sloppily throw his body over the fence and leave it nestled within bushes before running away. Exuberance and a sense of release craved for years pours out of Darcy as they scour for the mountain's most hidden opening to scuttle through. Luckily for Tex and Darcy, Az is feeling the paranoia. This manifests in him considering their steps, so they head back to find Lionel's hat. A 20-minute frantic scramble takes place before finally digging it out from under a gorse bush. With that taken care of, the magnitude of Darcy's actions start poking through. No remorse, just anxiety for future inconvenience bound to burden her supposed freedom. But as with anything, she brazenly declares that she has it under control, that she is untouchable, as long as she retraces her steps. First, she phones Bruce, promising a grisly visit from the heavies should he not burn the night's CCTV footage, something the £150 debt and fear of tarnishing future cocaine supply ensures he complies with in an instant. While Tex claims there's no need to flee, that no way Bangor cops are finding him down there, Az and Darcy painstakingly talk him around. Darcy scribbles down Grant's bail hostel's address and hands it to Az, who has been tasked with loitering until dawn before nabbing Grant's car for their escape. Next, it's Jensen's, who's just got his head down for the first bit of kip in 2 days, after a cocaine bender.
Rabid runs. Can't get off the bug. Sick tomorrow is inevitable.
What's going on, Darcy?
Stomach cramps. Flat out all night. Think it's spread around the workplace.
Has it?
Gonna affect some of the older lads. Might need temporary cover.
I see. Can't be helped. Happy to have your contracts terminated early.
Any severance pay going? Need bus fare. Hospital's miles away.
Not sure about that one.
Be a shame if I had to elaborate. After the service I've provided. Gnarly scenes here. Boggs estate.
She says in code word for not incriminating Jensen with details of the night's events.
Won't be necessary. See what I can do.
Jensen sends Blake around to the trap house, promising £200 for the unsociable hours call-out. A half-ounce each of cocaine and weed is weighed up, before Blake locks all the other drugs away in the attic. Tex is the unlucky lad sent to fetch it and wait with the stepson of his night's work, which a few Calvin Klein lines see him through. Darcy, meanwhile, seeking an alibi, pays gullible old Billings a visit. She needs something, anyone to unwittingly share the sheer glee rinsing her senses. Fully aware of his lust for her, she barges him straight down on his futon, fold-out sofa bed, and takes his virginity.
Never thought you liked me,
Justin remarks afterwards, while spooning Darcy. Darcy lights a fag and reaches over to flick ash on the bedside table.
Things change?
It was never personal, having space from Jensen's. Nothing to do with you.
Darcy sighs, turns over to face Justin, and kisses his neck.
Anyone asks, I was here tonight, yeah?
Well, you are, aren't you?
Darcy grins, fiercely pushes him with a kiss that sinks Justin's head onto the sofa and mounts him for a round 2, one she dearly hopes seals any doubt in his loyalty. That and a 3-gram spliff deliberately caked in crystals sends him into a deep sleep, gifting Darcy 2 hours of rare peace and solitude as BBC Three Cleveland show repeats rattle off. Every car that slithers past sends a brief jolt through her spine, until she cannot take it anymore. She texts Az simply the word, now, and within half an hour, he's outside in a scabby, early noughties Citroen hatchback. She sneaks out, leaving Justin to wake up that next morning in despair, panicking as Darcy's phone is off, half wondering if it was some sick, twisted, wet dream. It's only confirmed as police hammer his bedroom door the next day, demanding to know of Darcy's whereabouts the night before. He, of course, proudly answers, smug that he can send them on their way, in no doubt of his newly acquired stud status. Chapter 18. Darcy knows just where to take the boys. Hastings. Contacts there are plentiful, but none more valuable than Brodie, a crusty old mate from Porther Craig's heyday, when there were true rebels she could relate to. Brodie despised Gwynedd, and if she was to be homeless after leaving care, it had to be somewhere lively. She didn't sleep rough for long, having unearthed a 3-story untapped squat where she still resides to this day. Darcy is routinely begged to come down for a 2-week bender, so hiding there won't be an issue. Being the only one who once had a licence, Az is tasked with driving the Herculean 400-mile trek through buckets of motorway. Darcy deliberately withholds the journey's true distance, claiming it'll be a couple of hours max. Once they mount the M6, it becomes abundantly clear that Az is out of his depth, despite the roads being bare, bar lorries. It's been 10 years since he's driven more than a mile or two, and he's never once tackled a motorway. After running out of petrol 20 metres short of the station, they're forced to push the fortunately slender car to the pump. This finishes Az off, and blaming a hammy strain, he delegates driving duties to Tex. A risk, given he has no licence, but far from the death trap of Az's driving. Darcy covers the petrol, with everyone else conveniently skint. Doesn't matter. That'll come out of their cocaine allowance that she plans on keeping tight strings over. A hefty line gets Tex back in gear, and he shoots off before any doubts dare creep in. Opting for a back seat, Az gets right on the lines, each one only further engulfs him in guilt. He utterly regrets his peer-pressured kick, which will surely add years to his sentence. Had he just stood aside, there may have been room for self-forgiveness. But not now. While he would adore a spliff, not even he is brazen enough to risk enticing Rozzers with the stench. 5 hours in, and Darcy waives that rule, aching to shift the lurking dread of potential court and prison. It's late morning by the time they reach Hastings. With the carnival due to kick off later today, it's rampant. Plastic cup pint guzzlers are out in force, making the roads their own. Gridlock traffic ensures their last half mile alone takes an hour to conquer. While expectations are low, their makeshift humble abode proves far from the gold standard of trap house provided by Jensen. Despite Brodie generously dishing them the entire top floor, what's left of their chemically buzzed mood is in tatters. Previously rat-ridden until a gang of stray cats took over, the piercing piss stench remains, despite homeless humans banishing the cats 2 weeks ago. Not a place you want to be stuck all day, all night, which they'll have to be while figuring out the next step. Specks of light poke through the boarded windows gaps as Darcy flops down on the room's only mattress. A move she swiftly regrets, with barbecue sauce now littering her North Face coat sleeve. There's only one way these lot cure boredom. With just shy of 14 grams of coke at hand, Darcy crushes up a gram to share. Before the sesh and line servings get out of hand, she hands Tex and Az 3 grams each. Only she knows their true stock level, so she keeps most aside to ration, without a clue of how long they'll be confined to this grot hole. Partying roars downstairs, as is customary 24/7, but none of them muster the minerals to get involved. Not for the first night anyway, before temptation soon takes over. Already running low on coke after the first night, they pinch supplies from downstairs and throw most of what's left in to cook up some crack. Most is lapped up, with 500 quid's worth flogged within an hour. This bags them a 1/4 ounce of cocaine, split precisely 2.33 grams each way to top up their dwindling supplies. A stingy night lies ahead, not least with sleep out of the question, adding 8 hours to the day. But it's manageable, just about, if they stick to a sensible sized line an hour and save enough to whip up more crack tomorrow. Chapter 19. At risk of hemorrhaging customers owing to Darcy's absence, Jensen calls Blake and Justin in for a crisis meeting. Being the only 2 runners left at his disposal, he is in a right pickle. Both stick out like sore thumbs locally, given their family ties, especially if tackling Darcy, Tex, and Az's workload. Despite not truly believing they're ready, he decides to send them across country to operate from a real trap house. It's a desperate move, one the calculated Jensen Hayes would rarely make. But with a chance to be freed from full-time caring at stake, it has to be done. Justin initially refuses. However, firmly intent on playing the long game if needed, Jensen pulls out all the stops by celebrating Justin's late birthday. Intent on getting the birthday boy bladdered, he conjures a potent punch, white rum, apple sours, and ginger wine. This does the job, so when Jensen then proposes an extravagant profit share, more money than Justin could have ever hoped for, he eventually agrees. Only if it's for 2 days max, he can stick to selling weed without leaving the house to deal and bring his Xbox. The next morning, after 3 hours of broken sleep, Jensen shoves hangovers aside and whisks them to Rill. Justin's nerves rattle on the way. It's the first time he's stayed outside of Gwynedd without adult supervision. With his model of trap house being the relatively calm environment cultivated by Jensen, he doesn't fear their potential living conditions. The work, however, is a different question. Despite opting out of selling harder drugs, he will still be around while Blake takes care of that, opening himself up to its unpredictability nonetheless. Jensen's eerily quiet throughout and bats most questions off for when they arrive. Given the place's complete lack of insulation, Jensen stops off to buy the pair mountaineering sleeping bags. A wise move, given the dilapidated shithole is semi-derelict, with holes littering the walls, floorboards sticking up, and multiple windows caved in. All, luckily, on the first floor. Assured this is only a stopgap while Jensen finds more staff, Justin keeps cool during the induction while they're shown the place's hidden baseball bats, all handily available in most corners in case of robberies. This doesn't faze Blake, who is buzzing for a bit of excitement. Finally a chance to step up and move on from his runner bitch status. A low-key first day of business ensues for Justin, who keeps his focus on FIFA. Blake has no time for that. He's too busy serving up Valium and crack to a plethora of addicts who, worryingly, have long learnt how to bypass the back door's lock from the outside. Justin's main duties are takeaway runs, of which Blake orders plenty to celebrate his day's takings. Rats scampering around upstairs keeps him awake, so a night of hash spliffs and binging Top Boy it is.
This ain't so bad. And by this time tomorrow, it'll be all over. Home and dry, with enough cash to lay low for a good while.
Things take a turn for the worse the next morning when Ellis rocks up, seeking a tasty eighth of blue cheese. Given that he's robbed scores of kids over the years and often moves between areas, he rarely remembers his victims. Justin certainly remembers him, the very prick who made him look a pussy in front of Darcy, inevitably delaying his long-awaited night under the sheets. That takes priority over the money robbed as Ellis stumbles in, smothered by an oversized knee-length fur coat and tight t-shirt.
"Ellis, lad,"
Blake buoyantly says, thrilled to see a familiar face. Ellis glares Justin up and down, throws his skinny fag on the floor and takes a seat.
The fuck do you know my name?
Never forget, a top customer.
Ellis shrugs and tears £25 in crusty cocaine cake notes from his grubby skinny jeans pocket.
Eighth of cheese, lad.
35.
Fuck that, cheeky prick.
35 with the tenner you robbed.
Give me an eighth now. That's your rent.
You're barred until I get it back, after which you can pay us fucking rent.
Ellis squares up to Justin.
Do you think you are?
Blake shoulder barges Ellis aside, sending him crashing into the wall. Ellis gets up and pulls a knife out of his sock, leading Justin to whip out a stashed baseball bat. Despite trembling to the core, Justin edges forward, forcing Ellis to cower back into a corner, as Blake swipes his legs with the table, flooring the lad and sending the knife flying towards the TV. Justin tosses it aside before landing a few properly directed bat swipes downward on Ellis's face and ribs. Once on the brink of passing out, with a smashed left orbital bone and 3 cracked ribs, Blake hauls Ellis outside and dumps him on a footpath adjacent to the back door. While Justin had pledged never to become this sort of dealer, Ellis had it coming. No one forgets the first time they're robbed. Justin should have kept his pride intact. Ellis is back later that night, disrupting a long-awaited FIFA session as he bashes the back door in with a couple of hench crackhead cronies, who have no issue pinning Blake and Justin to the floor. Blake left out a bag of 50 crack wraps and an ounce of cocaine, ready for a night of bagging, before being drawn into a 10 quid a game FIFA session. Easy pickings for Ellis, who takes off with his lads for the sesh of a lifetime, leaving Blake and Justin in deep trouble on their first overseas mission. Despite heavies being hired to pay Ellis an immediate visit, this sloppiness means Justin and Blake cannot leave the trap house after their scheduled 2 days. They must stay until the gear is retrieved, which, given Ellis's customer database, is unlikely, even in the short time it will take to find him. Neither bother defying Jensen, with a rare sinister tone prevalent despite a clear attempt at keeping calm. It's not just Jensen they're in debt with, but his own psychopath boss, Ifan. Jensen's exemplary debt management has, up until now, enabled him to keep Ifan at arm's length, ensuring none of his runners have had to meet him. In rare rash insight, Jensen picked up Blake and Justin's stock on credit. To stamp authority on proceedings, Jensen makes his way up and sticks around for the evening. Fresh local rumours of slim pickings on Jensen's real pop-up shop ensures a high risk of further robberies. Chapter 20. Vivian can't help but blame herself for Lionel's death. On the night itself, Ron had phoned her on Facebook, admitting they planned to meet. It took until the next morning to find the body. Police scoured the opposite side of the mountain for hours before their grisly discovery. Identifying him at the morgue has sent Vivian into an almost permanent state of silence. Only the most necessary words are uttered to the kids. Seeing him with that black and blue bashed up face, imagining the untold suffering in his final minutes, the confusion he must have felt to be there in the first place, it all proves too much to hack. She wishes it was her in that bed, finally able to rest from what for her was already unravelling into a nightmare, way before this monstrosity dared occur. There's no hard feelings towards Lionel for cheating, or at Ron for satisfying him. She long questioned their compatibility, but hoped things would be revived once Lionel's career settled down. Blake refused to answer the phone on the first day, with his fickle attention span unable to simultaneously operate both his dealing and personal phones. Once he does find out, Jensen refuses to let him leave. Of course, he can't tell Vivian why. He can't tell her anything, and his vague answer only further sinks her into despair.
If Blake hated Lionel that much, why did we even move here? Would any of this have happened if we hadn't? I didn't push hard enough. Now look where we are. Lionel may never have strayed. I may never have got back on the Valium and shut him out. If I'd been a better wife, he wouldn't have needed to pursue career-shaped glory. He would have been content, even if he was always by. If I'd been more approachable, he might have told me. I could have dealt with him experimenting, if it made him happy. But I guess this is what terrible wives, mothers and people have coming to them.
Blake can't even make it back for the funeral, with Jensen slapping him when attempting to leave. He deeply regrets losing his temper, but until they claw back their deficit, they're all in hefty trouble. Like hell is Jensen doing it alone after not being to blame. By the day itself, Vivian's not even surprised and half expected Blake not to turn up. Besides her and the kids, the only others present are Lionel's estranged older brother, Ron, the gay bar regulars, and Miss Jack. Not even Lionel's father could bear it, and used his debilitating old age as an excuse. In reality, he is embarrassed of the circumstances, ashamed not of Lionel being gay, but of being a closet gay, too afraid to show the world his true self. Vivian hosts a wake at the house, strictly for adults as the kids are sent to bed by 8. Ron and co. come fully loaded with MDMA, cocaine, and enough whiskey to get them all paralytic. Vivian doesn't hold back and demolishes every line offered her way, a decision she soon regrets. Never has a come down stung like that of the next mornings. She wakes up on the sofa to an empty house, with Ron and co having scampered off in a taxi with their remaining whiskey after running out of drugs by 7 a.m. Understandably, the kids are playing up, causing havoc around the house, especially Hugo. But with patience running thin, Vivian has to leave. Anywhere will do. Dealing with the guilt needs her full attention, so she books Cheryl, and in a moment of madness, sets off before she arrives, with Cheryl promising to only be 5 minutes away. However, this proves to be far from the case, with sloppy Cheryl pulled over by police en route and arrested, only a whisker over the drink driving limit, after a hefty night on the town lingers in her bloodstream. Vivian heads down to the first pub she sees, a generic, grubby roadside drinker's boozer, full of morning pint chuggers, and veggies out in the beer garden. In need of a few hours' peace, she switches off her phone. This drags on, and despite taking Cheryl over the agreed 5 hours, she stays at the pub, safe in the knowledge Cheryl will understand given the circumstances, and welcome a generous tip on top of the extra hours. By evening, the kids are starving. Unwilling to see his younger siblings suffer, Harrison eventually steps up. Only problem is, he's never cooked a thing. He scours the fridge. An 8-pack of burgers is their only option. If he's going to be left alone to do adult work, it'll be on his terms. They deserve a treat for being left home alone. He lays the patties on the oven grate without a baking tray. Both this and the fact that he forgets they're cooking for 50 minutes starts a nasty fire, which, by the time they realise, has engulfed the entire kitchen. They safely make it outside and phone 999. Chapter 21. Unbeknown to Tex, Az and Darcy, the police have named them as primary suspects after a laborious few days of interviewing those who passed through that night. All have kept to not using an ounce of mobile data, a profound achievement given their collective social media addictions. But with cocaine levels running dangerously low, rationed to far less than what is needed for Tex to function, tempers are frayed after nearly a week of attic-bound hiding. Tex's psychosis is brewing, with the last 3 nights consisting of constant workouts to burn energy and hopefully soothe his manic mind. Given the floor below's chock-a-block full of sketchy homeless addicts, Az and Darcy stick to their room. The more they sober up, the gnarlier the grimy debauchery is to bear. A much-needed break is needed, so they agree to let Tex out for a trek if his hood remains up and he avoids the town centre. Being well on the prowl for cocaine sees Tex ignore their demands. He heads straight there for a natter with the homeless beggars. One in particular, Callum, piques his interest, mainly for knowing where to get an 1/8 of cocaine on credit. Callum leads the fiend down to a nearby estate on promise of getting 1/2 gram for his efforts. Callum has no desire to eventually pay the tick, but with plans harboured of moving up north to deal for Tex seemingly rubber-stamped, who cares? He won't be around to face the boiling kettle water-shaped consequences. Just as they leave the dealer's house, Mary, having devoured 2 chunky keys worth in full sight of families enjoying the estate's playground, Darcy rings up, and disaster strikes. Police have been snooping all morning, sending Brody's party into paranoia-induced meltdown. Once alerted to their presence, Darcy and Az scuttle off to the car, with Az apprehensively tasked with driving. Luckily, Tex is only 1/2 mile away, but the time taken to drive into town and use of Google Maps gives away their position and sees them nailed. Shame, as he would have never risked capture for them. A chase ensues once they reach the seafront. They bolt it down past the promenade, with 2 police cars closely in pursuit, but unable to quite catch them, owing to the traffic. Despite Darcy pleading that he turns into St. Leonard's, Az refuses and piles down the seafront. Bad move. A convoy is placed 1/2 mile later with spikes on the road that Darcy's beady eyes spot in just enough time. Az freezes and can't find the mobility to brake. Now nearing 70 miles an hour, he mounts the pavement, seeing the car smash into the barriers separating the ferocious full tide sea. Their motor slithers through and plops into the choppy waves. While grazed, none of their injuries are severe, leaving enough nous to open the doors before the water's unbearable weight locks them in. A semi-drowned stairwell sits 10 metres to the right, which Tex and Darcy dash over to without looking back to help Az, who cannot swim. Furious at their abandonment, Az jumps on the car's almost sunk roof and pleads for help. While Tex is confident in his immaculate butterfly technique, he doesn't bother utilising it to help Az. He and Darcy share bitter resentment at the drip, whose driving has seen them inevitably caught and probably sent down for most of their adult lives. An onlooker doggy paddles Az to safety instead, before they're arrested via a swift A&E visit to treat their minor injuries. Chapter 22. Now assured that Justin and Blake won't leave the trap house, Jensen heads home. Shanice had agreed to a one-off 3-day care package to temporarily help out. This, however, was at a significantly higher rate, which would swallow the money already saved up. What they've made so far in Rill sees him only $2,000 short of his target for 3 months of care. An unwavering relief, one that will hopefully get him through this last tricky stretch before a spell of relaxation. For the first time, he plans on moving out of his mother's house for as long as they can afford carers. Lizzie's urinary tract infection only adds to the demands upon returning, with nearly double the bathroom trips now needed. If money permits, he vows to buy a downstairs toilet or stair lift. While she does her business, Lizzie asks Jensen to set up the spare room. Having been stuck in bed for the thick part of a year, she fancies a lie down in there for a rare change of scenery. That's what she claims, anyway. Her eyes are on the prize. Aided by a walking stick, she lugs herself into Jensen's room, where an emergency drug stash is waiting to be unearthed. Jensen takes a walk as she dozes, nowhere blatant, just the nooks and crannies of Roman Camp and down onto Ashley Fields. While his hands are clean regarding Lionel's murder and association with Darcy, he cannot help but feel one may squeal and give details regarding his dealing away. Jensen trudges past Adam on the beach, a formerly inseparable old school friend walking his Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Until the age of 14, Jensen sought a better life and had many friends like Adam, friendly but as square as they come. He loved that. Sleepovers with functioning families, non-chaotic meals at the dinner table void of alcohol, peace and quiet from 10 p.m, heaven in his eyes. However, Jensen's descent into drugs and dealing saw him ditch those like Adam. Nonetheless, he is delighted to see him for the first time since their last school exam.
How are you, Ads?
Surviving, mate, surviving.
Adam half-heartedly says many of his wayward cousins now idolise the local legend dealer for all the wrong reasons.
What's been happening, lad?
Down in London. Just home for the weekend. Back to finish the Masters tomorrow.
Look at this one, surviving. Broke out of the trap, tearing it up in the city.
Guess so.
Good on you. Fucking well in there. What's next for you then?
Architecture, I hope. Got a placement. Should guarantee a job.
Well happy for you. Fucking right, Ads.
How's the situation back here? Heard about Liz?
Yeah, less said the better.
Oh, shit.
Jensen sadly looks down.
Nightlife still making the place bearable?
Nah, not like the old days. Not what it once was. Most just hammer drugs now.
Passed your A-levels, didn't you?
Jensen nods.
Oh, there you go. Get yourself away, mate. Fuck all this off. Uni awaits.
Can't leave, man.
Oh, well, fair enough. Totally understandable.
Not forever anyway, but for a cheeky weekend with my man Ads.
Yeah. Look forward to that.
Arrangements can be made.
Yeah, can't wait. Gotta get back. Dad's making noodles.
Yeah, same as that, yeah. Shouldn't even be out.
Yeah, hopefully catch you soon then, yeah?
Adam says while walking away, before his face sinks once turned. Reality of the conversation only dawns on Jensen after a few minutes, There's nothing worse than a snob who forgets where they came from, who looks down his nose at those once at his shoddy level.
Who is he to talk to me like that? Made more money than he could dream of.
Part of Jensen wants to storm back, give him a hiding, and release the last decade of rage boiling up since his last true fight beyond slapping underperforming runners. But he thinks better of it. With a job in hand to do at home, he's of no use to her locked up for GBH. Not until he can pay for carers again. He arrives back to find that he's no good to her regardless, with her having suffered what is this time a fatal stroke in his absence. She successfully uncovered his emergency cocaine stash and suffered a blood clot after the third quickfire line. He checks her pulse to make sure, but it's lights out. Jensen lobs a chair into the wall, boots a cupboard, and tears off the curtain rail before leaning into the wall against his back. He sinks down to the floor while bursting into harrowing, wailing tears. After a minute, it dawns on him there's evidence littering the place. So he gets to work with collecting the house's hidden drugs, scrubbing surfaces, and getting his story straight. He will undoubtedly be imprisoned should they conclude he supplied the fatal dose, whether intentionally or not. Fortuitously for him, having been away in Rill, he has somewhat of an alibi. Despite his paranoia, the paramedics don't ask particularly probing questions owing to her poor health. It could take days or weeks for an autopsy, leaving Jensen scot-free to deal with grief alone and not in a cell. He spends a couple of days blitzing the house, scrubbing it from top to bottom, ridding the living room of that unsightly hospital bed and returning some sense of normality. In this time, Adam's words loom large. There's nothing he can do to change his part in her death. Was he not a dealer with drugs lying around, this wouldn't have happened. But a part of him is glad. It's brought the ominous misery forward, saving the pair 5 to 10 years of grim suffering. What he can do to channel the guilt is make use of his newfound freedom. Make a dash for it while he still can. This can go one way or the other, with his supplier Ifan notoriously volatile and unpredictable, but a frank conversation sees him released from the role with no hard feelings, with Ifan allowing it based on Jensen's lengthy, consistent service. He will always be respected as part of Ifan's ascent into the middle class. It comes at a cost, 10 grand to be exact, most of what Jensen has left. 2 grand that he owes, and 8 to amicably part ways. While a sizable fee just to leave his position, it's reserved for training Jensen's replacement, with the risk of them failing and losing money, then subsidised, leaving nothing for Jensen to be blamed for in future. While Jensen could, theoretically, wipe Blake and Justin's debt off with the rest of his money, he thinks better of it. Nothing would be left for his fresh start then. With university term time looming in the next couple of weeks, it takes no time for his Southampton University application to be accepted. Business studies is his subject of choice. He had considered music production, but swerved it in favour of practicality and future opportunities. Without allowing doubts to creep in, he packs up his car and moves into a 1-bedroom seaside flat, buzzing for his student loan to soon arrive, void of dealing-related stress for the first time in a decade. If any temptation to leave the trap house had occurred, it is skyrocketing now. Dealing under Ifan has been hairy, and he shows no signs of patience with their debt. It's now priced at 5 grand, double their original bill. Despite their best efforts, they simply cannot generate the revenue to bring it down. Des, their new interim supervisor on trial for Jensen's position, is to blame for that, having gone to town on their crack's original purity. As such, Blake has been hemorrhaging customers. Even the weeds are shade of the quality, with Ifan unprepared to offer his 2 worst performing runners the best stuff. By the end of the next week, with 2 more days until another £2,500 worth of interest is lumped onto their sum total, Ifan's had enough and sees no chance of redemption. He lures them into his car. While Justin holds next to no geographical sense of Northern England, Blake's heart sinks as they turn off the dual carriageway towards Liverpool, in the complete opposite direction to Chester, where Ifan drops them by an industrial estate. Ifan points towards a field in the distance.
Down there.
Ifan hurtles off without answering. Blake glances at Justin and subtly shakes his head.
You've got to. Don't like it, Billings. Doesn't fill me with hope.
Justin peeks over to the field as Blake walks off in the other direction.
You coming?
Don't leave me here, man.
Mile to a train station. Next one's off in 20.
Justin rubs his clammy head.
Fuck's sake, Blake. Cheers, lad.
He storms off down the field. Blake only makes it halfway up the road before Des screeches past and pulls up with Justin in the passenger seat, sporting a fresh black eye for letting Blake leave.
Where you heading, La?
Des asks, a devious look complementing his sketchy neck tattoos.
Be late for work, mate. No sick days in this field.
Blake makes a run for it, but is swiftly caught up by Des, who jumps out, grabs Blake, and launches him into the back seat, cracking his head on the seatbelt. Such is the force. Des spins the car around with a donut turn and speeds back towards the field.
You two, walk ahead.
Des points towards a gate at the other end of the vast, boggy field.
Where's this trap house then?
Down here. Few fields to cross first. Don't want to be seen going in.
Blake grunts and leads the charge forward, with Des hovering closely behind.
Fuck this. I ain't losing it all without having to go first. There ain't no house lurking down here.
Justin takes a deep breath before lightly nodding. Blake grins, grits his teeth, and riles himself up for a true test of heart. Even with Justin's flimsy backup, Des will be hard to topple. Regardless, he turns back and storms his way. Des calmly ushers Blake forward. The first wild swing is ducked, which Des capitalises on by swiping Blake's legs and clattering him to the floor before stamping on his head, knocking the boy out. Justin splutters and scuttles away, only for Des to whip out a knife. He soon catches up and stabs Justin just under the ribcage.
Now, you can lie there and have a think about your actions today.
Justin gargles while rolling around in agony. Des grins and squares over to Blake, who's groaning, but still very much floored.
Your fault this is.
He slashes Blake across the cheek, leaving him squealing in agony.
Big boys are here now and you never, ever run away from one.
He chillingly adds, before spitting on Blake's head and jogging over to his car. A harrowing 20-minute wait for an ambulance ensues, with Blake just about having found the words to phone one. Convinced he'll die, Justin fades in and out of consciousness while internally bewailing his recent choices. Not that of leaving home, but for being sucked in so easily to a life he never wanted. Never, if he makes it through this, will he ever touch drugs or hang around with anyone who deals. He truly believed Jensen to be a friend, the only one within that motley group. Someone who understood his plight and fought for him to be treated fairly.
And Darcy, well, it's her fault. No doubt about that. If I ever see her again, won't I'll be landing a slap on her chops. Use me at your peril. Too late for apologies, sunshine.
Fortunately, the stabbing avoided any major organs and didn't necessitate immediate surgery. However, he comes around to the sight of two policewomen hovering over the hospital bed who arrest him on suspicion of perverting the course of justice, before informing him of Darcy's arrest earlier that day on suspicion of murder. Chapter 23. The Sawyers family house was left in tatters following the fire, condemned to destruction, which, coupled with Blake's stabbing, provided just the excuse to leave and head back to Kent, where their sole sources of support remain. However, Lionel barely had any money left following the pricey deposit and 12 months' rent in advance paid up on his new dental practice. As a result, emergency social housing follows, with the family locked out of the county's extortionate rental market, left to lumber on a waiting list for what could be years. Used to relative luxury, this depresses the three youngest children who've had their social class slashed overnight and aren't half teased about it at their new school. While traumatised by the stabbing, being away from North Wales soon sees Blake come around, especially after some quality time with old mates. Shooed in by an old friend of the family, he lands work on a construction site, wheelbarrowing tarmac, where he thrives. Which is just as well, with nobody else willing to hire a 16-year-old with a gnarly facial scar and no GCSEs. Buoyed by the guilt of not being there for Vivian following Lionel's death, he feels somewhat responsible for the house burning down and has no problem working 50 hours a week until they're all sorted. While Tex was, in truth, delighted to be back in prison, shot of the daily stress of making his own decisions, it is far from the breeze of his first sentences. While previously boasting immense popularity within most circles, most haven't taken kindly to Tex not saving Az from the water. Shunned by all the other loathed rapists, his time on remand proves deathly lonely. He tries his hand at kitchen work, but is mercilessly bullied, making up his mind to stay cell-bound and rot away, watching Freeview television. Having shown no remorse whatsoever, and deemed by the court to have aggravated the attack while also landing the hardest blows, Tex is sentenced to life, with a minimum of 27 years to be served before he's eligible for parole. Only days before a trial was due to start, he changed his plea on staunch advice from his lawyer. Az, meanwhile, despite only talking about his part of the murder, showed visceral remorse from the get-go. Deemed to have played a minimal role in the killing itself, he's given a lenient life sentence and will be eligible for parole in 17 years. Adjudged as the group's ringleader, Darcy is given a life sentence with a minimum of 30 years to be served before she's eligible for parole, a staggering sentence for a 16-year-old. She starts it in juvenile prison, where she harbours grand plans of becoming top dog. Having been involved in dozens of fights while on remand, a colossal reputation is already fortified. Should she maintain her status up until moving on from juvie, a cushy life of protection in adult prison awaits. Justin is dealt far more compassion, with his charge of perverting the course of justice yielding only a 12-month suspended sentence and ankle tag for 6 months. This hardly makes a difference with Justin harbouring scarce desire to reintegrate with society. Other than his dole appointments, he wallows in the house, lonely, skint, but proud of what he's gone through to still be alive, physically fighting fit, wiser to the dangers of seemingly nice people, with a wealth of experience to pass on to younger generations and serve the community he nearly helped poison, should he find the gall to leave the house. The end.